Please hand in your completed card to the city clerk before the start of the meeting. If the meeting has already begun, please hand it to any city staff. You may also check the "I do not wish to speak" option on the card. This allows you to still voice your opinion on an item on the record without having to speak. Public comment on a non-agenda item will take place during the citizen comment portion of the evening. These are items that don't appear on tonight's formal agenda. The city clerk will call your name when it's time for you to speak. At that time, please approach the podium and state your name for the record. We ask that you speak clearly into the microphone. You'll have a maximum of 3 minutes, and there is a timer visible from the podium. When the light changes from green to yellow, your time is coming to an end. When the light turns red, your time is up. Note that you may also choose not to speak if other speakers before you have said what you wanted to say. Shouting, cheering, and loud noises will not be tolerated, and violators may be removed for disrupting the meeting. Goodyear City Council meetings stream live on Facebook and YouTube, and online at goodyearaz.gov. Thank you for your participation in tonight's meeting.
We're going to have to adjourn the executive session and reconvene the special sitting. So it's adjourned. There being no further business discussed, this meeting is adjourned. Now I'll call the meeting for, excuse me, let me move this. It's kind of getting echo on it. I'd like to call the regular meeting in order, April 26, 21. Please join Councilmember Kano in the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dear Heavenly Father, we open this meeting by inviting you into this assembly to give you honor. We humbly acknowledge the multitude of blessings over our city, and we give thanks for this season of growth and abundance. Bless our businesses, educators, and residents to a full recovery, and lead those who have lost someone or something during the pandemic to complete restoration. Lord, heal our nation. Thank you for the community we serve and for those who have come tonight to participate in the council meeting. We ask for wisdom to make sound decisions on every agenda item. Thank you for the men and women in Goodyear Police and Fire and in our military. Let them serve with honor and receive honor for their service and sacrifices. We pray for their health and safety and ask for divine protection. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councilman Kano, for that very wonderful prayer tonight. All right. We're all present at the second meeting, ready for the second and the third. So our city clerk will now give information how to participate in tonight's meeting.
While the Goodyear City Council meetings are open to the public, the occupancy has been reduced to implement social distancing. Seating is generally available on a first-come basis, but meeting attendees will be cycled in and out if necessary to allow for speakers to speak on certain agenda items. If you wish to speak during a regular meeting, please complete a speaker's card so that we may ensure you are in the room for that item. Face masks are required in the building until 5 p.m. and they are optional after 5 p.m. Our residents still have several ways to address the council. They may submit their questions and comments to public comments at goodyearaz.gov, and during meetings, residents can view the meetings using Facebook, YouTube, or the live session link on the meeting video page on the city clerk's office website. After the meetings are completed, they can also be viewed on YouTube. The public may always contact their mayor and council at any time by sending an email to gycouncil@goodyearaz.gov.
Thank you. Now is the time for citizens who would like to address the City Council on any non-agenda item within jurisdiction of the City of Goodyear Council. Are there any speaker cards?
Yes, Mayor. Jeffrey Uber.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Uber? Mr. Uber, let me just, last time you were here, I didn't get this in, so I don't need to give you instructions. The council will listen to your comments, and they may take one of the following. They may respond to criticism. They may request the staff investigation, report on the matter. They can request that the matter be scheduled on a future agenda. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. The yellow light will let you know you have 20 seconds left to speak. Before you begin to speak, identify yourself by clearly stating for the record your name and if you are a Goodyear resident.
Yes, my name is.
It's a lot. I told you
Yes,
a lot.
I'm
And
sorry.
unfortunately, we missed it the last time, so
I'm
I
sorry.
just wanted to give you the heads up, okay?
Okay, my name is Jeffrey Huber. I live in Goodyear and Avondale. I'm currently been homeless. I've been in this political arena for quite a few years now, and I can say that what you and your staff have done for me over the last 2 weeks has been amazing.
Good.
I've been in contact with people on the governor's staff and Debbie Lesko's staff. I'm just asking, is there any way you could put it in a good word for me so I can talk to one of these people? Summer's coming. Please, ma'am. I hear a lot of good things about you. I hear a lot of amazing things about you.
Yes,
God
we
bless
heard,
America.
we heard your request, and somebody will get back
Thank
to you,
you.
okay?
You
Thank
can
you.
Call me back. Thank you.
All righty.
God bless.
Will the city clerk please read, I'm sorry, there's another one? All right.
Janet and Richard Kirschbaum.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. We are Janet and Richard Kirschbaum and reside in Pebble Creek community in the city of Goodyear. Being residents of the community of Pebble Creek, where we all pay our share of property taxes and do not have children attending schools, nor does the city maintain our roads, and we do not have regular police patrols. However, police and fire responders are always there as needed and very much appreciated. We're here tonight with two questions that we're requesting be answered verbally as well as in writing. When I spoke with Councilmember Pizzolo a few weeks back, he inquired as to my well-being. My reply was, fine, thank you, except for living in the swamp. His immediate response was that the city was done with their work with Pebble Creek, and they had already paid $1 million to fix the problem. It was now up to the HOA to fix this situation, and to please go back and tell them in Pebble Creek that the city is done. Given that profound response, I inquired with the manager of Pebble Creek, Bill Barnard, and he said he didn't know what the council member was saying and that they were in fact working with the city. And he never heard of or met council member Pizzolo, I'm sorry, Joe. When I completed the questionnaire about speaking here at City Council, I received an email from Javier Sedovich, Director of Public Works for the City of Goodyear, stating that they were working with Pebble Creek to alleviate the water problem. So as very concerned citizens, we ask you, where do we stand on this issue? The second question is, there have been many statements made prior to Robeson building the Pebble Creek community. In order for him to obtain the building permits from the City of Goodyear, he had to assume any and all liability, maintenance, etc., for the property he was purchasing, and that the City of Goodyear relinquished their involvement in any of it. This meant the flood control channel as well. If this is correct, we would like to be provided copies of the records on this agreement. Once and for all, we would really like to get this extremely unsafe and unhealthy situation resolved.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Kirschbaum, and we will direct staff to respond to this.
Okay, and would you like a copy of my questions?
You could get it over there to the
Okay,
city
thank
clerk.
you.
Are there any other speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Okay, all right. Let's go on to the consent agenda. Will the city clerk please read consent agenda items 1 through 9 by title only, please?
Number 1, approval of minutes. Number 2, recommend approval of a new Series 12 restaurant liquor license for Babbo Italian Eatery located at 15705 West McDowell Road, Goodyear, Arizona 85395. Number 3, approve expenditure of $929,000 for repairs to project number 60011 Site 21 Potable Water Reservoir Rehabilitation Project and related budget transfers. Number 4, approve and authorize 2 temporary drainage easement agreements within El Cedro. Number 5, adopt resolution number 2021-2152, approving the Second Amendment to the Infrastructure Development Agreement for Project 1011, directing the city manager to execute the amendment document, authorizing and directing actions and providing for an effective date. Number 6, adopt resolution number 2021-2148, approving a new memorandum of understanding between the City of Goodyear and United Goodyear Firefighters Local 4005, commencing on July 1st, 2021 and expiring on June 30th, 2023. Number 7, approve the final plat of Pebble Creek Phase 2, Unit 47A, subject to stipulations. Number 8, appoint Judge Maria Brewer as Judge Pro Tempore of the Goodyear Municipal Court for the remainder of fiscal year 2021 and for fiscal year 2022. Number 9, approve the preliminary plat for Estrella Parcel 11.I2, subject to stipulations.
Thank you. Does anyone on the council wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? And I'd like a motion and a second to approve the items 1 through 9. Do I hear that motion?
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion from Councilman Campbell and a second from Councilman Hampton. Roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Stipp?
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Hampton?
Aye.
Councilmember Kano?
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
The motion carries.
All right, council, there are 6 public hearings on the agenda tonight. So I'm going to start by opening the first public hearing, a zone for Avita at Canyon Trails. Opening the public hearing. Staff, they're before us. Hello. Just announce who you are.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Alex Listinsky, Senior Planner. The rezone before you tonight is the Aviata at Canyon Trails proposal. It is a rezone of approximately 20 acres located at the northeast corner of Cotton Lane and Canyon Trails Boulevard. So just south of this site, on the image on the left, is the Canyon Trails Town Center, most known for the Target anchor. To the east is existing single-family homes as part of the Canyon Trails development. Just southeast here, you can see my mouse, is the Copper Trails Elementary School. And then to the west, we have Cotton Lane. Moving up north turns into the 303. West of Cotton Lane is the recently rezoned and under construction Hancock at Canyon Trails development. And then south of that is the Crestwood at Canyon Trails, which is under construction and probably occupied a bit as well. The property is currently designated under the Canyon Trails Phase 1 planned area development as a medium-high density residential court home product, which estimated that density at around 8 dwelling units per acre. Since this property is located along the freeway, the general plan does designate it as business and commerce, and multifamily at higher densities is permitted within this land use to serve as a buffer between single family and the freeways, and also adjacent to commercial centers to support those centers. As I mentioned, the rezone request tonight is to rezone the property to the city's MF24 multifamily district. There's no proposed deviations. Typically, we've recently seen planned area development overlays, which are requesting amendments to the city's standards. However, this one proposes no changes, so it's just a straight rezone from PAD to MF24. These are conceptual elevations. With the rezone, we do ask for a narrative and look at the proposed elevations, proposed site plan, all at a conceptual level. Staff may bring up comments as a courtesy to prepare them for their actual submittal. So these might not be what it actually gets developed as. And I think someone's behind me and has additional comments on
Yes,
that.
I do.
Thank you, Alex. Good evening, Council. Christopher Baker, Development Services Director. I just wanted to sort of interrupt the flow, if you will, respectfully interrupt the flow of Alex's presentation, just to talk briefly about these elevations that are before you this evening. We, as staff, certainly know how much council desires to have high-quality architecture and color. We've heard that input from council many times. And so what I wanted to point out with regard to this specific slide, and the next one I believe that also has elevations on it, is on March the 9th, Alex and I had a conversation with the owner and also the owner's legal representation, who's representing them with regards to the zoning change application. And politely encourage them strongly to increase the architectural quality of the project because simply what was shown on those slides we felt was falling short of council expectations. So that communication has been delivered to the applicant and the owner, and we've had subsequent conversations as well. But what you see tonight is what was proposed to us. So we are being transparent with council, and this was what the proposal was. We don't believe this is what will end up being built because we are not approving the elevations tonight. However, I know that the owner and the owner's representation is here tonight, and if you so choose, we would love to hear any council input with regard to the architectural quality and colors of the project. Alex and I are here to listen, and the owner and their representatives are also here, and I'm sure they would love to hear your input.
Christopher, would they like to speak this evening? This is an opportunity if they'd like to come before us.
I think a little bit after Alex concludes her presentation, I'm sorry, I just kind of butted in on this particular slide, so I'm going to turn it back over to Alex. I just wanted to address these couple of elevation things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Christopher. So I did switch the slide. This is the proposed carriage units that would face Cotton Lane at the moment, potentially the 303 build out. Similarly to the elevations, the site plan is submitted as at a conceptual level. Like I mentioned, staff does provide courtesy comments to get them closer to what it might look like, but nothing is approved with the rezone. The staff and the applicant attended a virtual neighborhood meeting on Zoom on December 9th of last year. No one from the public joined that call. However, we did have one resident who has been in contact with the applicant and staff, has not voiced any objections to it, was just providing some concerns and comments about height, distance from their backyard, and the applicant has been very has been communicating quite a bit with that resident. So he may be here tonight. I haven't heard from him since the commission meeting, but I just wanted to call that out. And then there was no one from the public spoke against or about the item at the Planning and Zoning Commission. The rezone request does meet the intent of the general plan, the standards of the zoning ordinance, and the city's engineering standards. As we have discussed previously with other multifamily projects, we do reach out to Luke Air Force Base. They do have the graduated density concept. Within the Canyon Trails overall development, the change in this parcel's density in context with the entire Canyon Trails development does meet what the city has previously agreed upon. We are looking at those case by case and adjusting the numbers and sharing those with Luke Air Force Base. So they did not object or provide any, they provided written feedback, the typical that they were in support of it, but that was still meeting their intent. And then the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval on April 14th, about 2 weeks ago. That concludes my presentation, and the applicant is here for a presentation. The property owner here is here as well, and they have a presentation available if you like, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Alex. Are there any speaker cards? Would anybody in the audience like to speak? All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. And will the city clerk please read resolution number 2021-2143 by title only, please?
Adopt resolution number 2021-2143 declaring as public records of certain documents filed with the city clerk titled Official Supplementary Zoning Map 20-04A rezone from PAD to MF24 in legal description Aviata.
Thank you. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
I heard a motion from Vice Mayor Stiff, and I need a second.
Second.
Second from Councilman Basillo. Open for council discussion. Council, Vice Mayor.
Alex, what was the PAD overlay for this particular project was? You said court homes?
It was designated as a medium high density residential product, and then in the PAD it goes back and forth between a medium high density and calling it a court home. So kind of like what you'd see at La Ventia was the intent of that.
So what was the dwelling units per acre?
About 8 dwelling units per
And
acre.
what is it going to?
24 is the maximum. I think that they're proposing 20 with the proposed site plan that you saw.
This appears to be consistent with the general plan and the general concept of that Canyon Trails area. Is that correct?
The general plan, business and commerce does permit higher density multifamily. It is residential, a higher density residential than a typical single family within the PAD, not as high as the 24, but consistent with residential to residential. That answers your question.
Yeah, it does. So, when we talk about trying to buffer between single family, a freeway, which is basically the 303 as it turns into Cotton Lane there, and Canyon Trails development, this seems to be a good fit for that particular neighborhood. It's not a conversion of retail space to multifamily, which we are seeing a lot of in some of these smaller parcels. So to me, this seems to make a lot of sense. I appreciate Christopher's comments about working with the development team regarding this project because, and I think I'm going to steal Christopher's line, but various shades of brown don't work anymore. So we've got to see something else. So to our applicant, we've got to see something different. We don't want something bold that's going to stick out in the middle of everything, but we've got to have some diversity in this product. And I think that's kind of a constant that we're going to hear pretty regularly, everyone who comes before us. So thanks for the project. I think it's a good fit. Looking forward to see what you guys come up with.
Why don't we have the applicant come up before you ask any more questions? Could the applicant come before us?
Thank you. And is this on? All right.
It's on.
Thank you. Last time I tried it wasn't, so I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor Stipp, City Council members. My name is Andrew Yancey. I'm an attorney with Bergen, Frank, Smalley, and Oberholzer. We represent the Hears Management Company, and that's the owner of this property is also going to construct and operate this project after it's been completed. Mr. Brett Hears is here with us tonight, as is Craig Smith from KSE Engineering. Mr. Hears' company has built and operated projects for over 30 years. They manage over 3,000 units in the valley today. This property, it's a unique location. It's an infill project next to a planned freeway that we're hoping gets there soon. Also across the street from approximately 100-acre Canyon Trails Town Center retail establishment. And it's also sort of the gateway to the single-family Canyon Trails neighborhood. Mr. Hears purchased this property within the past year in order to meet the market demand for this sort of quality multifamily project with upscale amenities, quality architecture, colorful landscaping. We're happy to be here with unanimous recommendation of approval from Planning and Zoning Commission. Based on what Alex and Christopher have presented, I won't go through my full presentation, but I do know there were some comments about the architecture. I'll address that and then certainly be happy to answer any other questions as well. And so, Alex, could you put it on slide number 13, I believe. Next one. There we go. So as Christopher and Alex showed, these were the conceptual elevations we prepared with our rezoning package. As the staff mentioned, we're rezoning hard zone to the new MF24 district. Our density, we're proposing about 20.65, which is well within that 24 units per acre. And we're going to meet and exceed all the other standards that are in the zoning ordinance. We will be preparing a design review package, and that will be something that goes forward, and it will, of course, be subject to the city's multifamily design guidelines. I think, I believe Vice Mayor Stipp pointed out sort of the location of this project. You don't want something too bold that's going to stand out and not fit with the residential character of the community you're getting into. So we're trying to weave sort of a fine line. And I know what Mr. Heers really likes is what he considers a timeless approach to the architecture, something that's going to do well over time. And so that's the reason why what we were going for here was, looking at these outdoor spaces, the balconies and patios, sort of, protruding to break up the masses with some different elements. There's both wrought iron and stucco on those, a mix of hipped and gabled roofs to sort of blend in and give a residential feel, and lots of colorful landscaping. As Christopher mentioned, we have talked to staff on several occasions, and based on a more recent discussion, Mr. Heers is considering potentially a slightly different approach, which I did not have it in time to get it in the presentation, but I do have a printed copy of what is a more modern Spanish style. Mm-hmm. And again, this is not our design review package, that'll be coming, but it's more of a classic white as the primary color with some darker accents. It'll have blue doors. It still has this great type of outdoor space with these raised balconies and patios. And this is just a photograph here of another project that sort of serves as an example. It wouldn't be exactly this. We can still mix in some hipped and gable roofs and do other things to make sure that it's the type of quality that the city is looking for. And it's also going to blend in from the neighborhood. And just the other thing to take into account is the visibility from the 303. We're within a area where we're required to do noise mitigation for the western part of the project because of the proximity to 303. Our sound study initially came back and said we need to do a 16-foot sound wall along 850 linear feet of our property. We didn't think that sounded very good, so we figured out a way that we can put our 2-story carriage units against that western boundary, and those units themselves will serve as the sound mitigation while also providing a little lower profile sort of townhome feel, and that's what you're going to see from the freeway. We'll have multiple elevations of those as well. So happy to answer any questions you have. I hope that gives you just a little context for the approach we're looking to take.
Thank you. I think at this point, I'm going to turn it over to council. Questions? Councilman Loretano?
I appreciate you bringing this forward. I think I agree with Vice Mayor Stipp that it's a very appropriate place for this type of project. My heartburn was on what Christopher talked about. When we look at the slide that's up there now, it looks very dated, very old, very tired, not very modern. The second slide that you said is where you were considering, I think that looks a lot more modern, a lot more classic. And again, we just don't want a whole bunch of all white buildings either. So some mixture there. And as the Vice Mayor said, just not all shades of brown, different textures, which I think the second slide gets you more than this slide. This slide just looks like, to me, it was built in 1980. That's kind of what I see. So I do appreciate that you're going back and looking at adding accents, stone, other textures, I think would help a lot too. It's a great place for it if we're talking about luxury amenities and luxury apartments. And with everything else I've seen coming in, if I was to be a consumer of this product and I was to see this, the second slide you have, or some of the others coming in, I think the second slide would be much more competitive with the other builders that I've seen their stuff coming in. So I think to be competitive, you do need to look at that. So I do appreciate, I think it's a great place, and I think you guys are on the right track.
Councilman Kano?
I prefer the proposed Spanish style. I like the white. I think it's real clean looking with the blue doors and such. I think the elevation as shown is redundant and not timeless. But anyway, I did want to talk about carriage units and their proximity to the road or the freeway. It looks like that is going to be the buffer. So when the 303 is built, how close is that going to be to the road?
I'm sorry, I don't have the exact dimension. It will be, set back 30 feet from the property line where the building setback is. There's also going to be an access road that does go in between the main freeway lanes and the property there.
Mayor, Councilmember Keno, if I could have Elmo back for one more second. I did print this out earlier. It is from the conceptual design concept report from ADOT's study based on the 303. Sorry, I don't have a pen, so you'll see my hands. But the pink line is the here's property line. Oh, over here. And then the frontage road, I believe, runs across, starts over here. So I wasn't able, there wasn't a scale on this image, but you can see if this is going to be about 132 feet, I would say approximately 130 feet to the property line, and then as Andrew mentioned, the 30-foot setback off of that.
Is your question answered?
I still have more questions. Thank you. Thank you for that. And with the setback, you'll have landscaping and things as a buffer. All right. Well, earlier today, I had a very robust conversation with Christopher and his team about the commercial, the property as it's currently zoned, because I'm feeling hesitant to relinquish what we've already zoned. And we did discuss the limitations of the Loop 303 and its access because the exit won't be until Yuma. However, this entire corridor is shaping up to be rentals on both sides from I-10 all the way down to the Canyon Trails. And I would like to see a diversity of products that include court homes. I feel like there's a segment of our population that needs an opportunity to enter home ownership and that the court home provides. And for that reason, I will not support the rezone.
Councilman Hampton?
Yeah. So I want to verify also. So I know this parcel here, everybody will be going out onto Canyon Trails Boulevard, and that does not connect to the freeway there. So everybody has to go through the neighborhood or go through the target parking lot to get to the eventual Diamond intersection at Yuma and the 303, correct?
Just to clarify, Councilmember Hampton, you're talking about the build out of the Cotton Lane frontage road. That won't directly go to the build out of the 303. So yes, they would have to go south to Yuma to go to the full Diamond interchange, exactly. Or go north to the stack at.
And then go underneath and around and.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I was also talking to staff today too, and we have a lot of potential apartments in other places, and also to Councilwoman Keno's point as well. I'd rather see a court home or something like that here as opposed to another apartment type complex, because I know we're going to have a lot more of those, and there's not much diversity here. I like the look of this. I just don't like the location of it right here. So I'll probably be a no as well. So, yeah.
Next. Council? Any comments?
I have a comment.
Molly?
Thank you very much for your presentation, and thank you, Alex, for your presentation. I do like your new proposal of the Spanish looking. I think that is very unique for Goodyear, and I'm not thrilled about the brown anywhere, but I'm not a brown person. I prefer a little bit more vibrant color, and I think if you're as creative as you appear to be, you're going to make that area very interesting and a really wonderful addition to that area, because I think it's a good fit for there. Infills are hard to find that are quality, and this one appears to be very high quality, and for that we thank you, and thank you for thinking of Goodyear.
Any other comment from council? Councilman Pizzillo?
On that picture you had put up earlier relating to the 303, where's this project related to the 303?
The existing 303 is a little bit north on this image, but with the build out, like I said, this is the conceptual report, so may not be its final location, but approximately right where my finger is.
And the property is what you have highlighted in the pink?
Correct.
And what's the distance between that and the proposed 303, would you say?
I don't have that. It wasn't listed on here. My estimate, based on these 2 points, is 135. Just given my size of my finger is about 130 from where the frontage road begins.
Yeah, I can see, I agree with some of the other council members about the diversity of product, but I just don't see single-family homes there, from my perspective, at that location. Thank you.
Go ahead. I'll allow you to speak. Go ahead. You answer the question, please.
Yes, and if I could just address a few of the items that were noted in council discussion. Alex, would you mind going to slide 4 on my presentation?
Just tell me when.
One more, but that one right there. So I did just want to note a couple of things. First of all, this project is not a conversion from commercial to residential. This has been planned for residential and one of the higher density residentials in the Canyon Trails PAD since it was since 2004 when the last plan came into place. But what I want to just show here very briefly is this is a map of the Canyon Trails area in 2004. You can see there is high density, medium high density, and commercial plan. So what's planned to be a mix of uses within the PAD. And Alex, can you go to the next slide, please? And then when you fast forward to 2020, something you'll see here just looking at the aerial is pretty much all of the single family areas have built out within the PAD. And along Cotton Lane, the future 303, is where you have a lot of the commercial, medium, high density, and high density. And a lot of that hasn't built out right now. We're also in a little different market than we were almost 20 years ago when this PAD was conceived. And so increasing the density here and going to this multifamily use, we think will really help fulfill the initial vision of the PAD. In particular, just want to note the commercial build out here. We've got it as about 44% undeveloped, and that's being a little bit generous because that Canyon Trails Town Center there, it's about 100 acres, and it's only about half built out when you consider what's been constructed and the vacancies that are in there. So what you need is more people in the area who can frequent it, and we're talking about putting just over 400 units right across the street with people who can walk there very easily. Will hopefully help some more retail, restaurant type businesses come there that will benefit the entire community. And just also wanted to note, I think this has sort of been discussed, there is limited access on this site. We can really only get in and out from Canyon Trails Boulevard. So, if you're thinking that maybe it would look at a commercial down the road, that's not really an ideal setup for a commercial use. So that's why we think the multifamily would work very well right there in that area.
Any other comments? Well, thank you thank you for attempting to find an exterior that we're all happy with. I think it's a good place for this, so I support it. But I really would like to see the final drawings, and of course we won't for a while. But I think that we need the density there. There's a lot of single family. And you're right about the shopping center, and we need to encourage that tendency to keep the shop open, to keep the shops open. And so I thank you for the extra work you put into this, and we look forward to seeing the final plan. All right, council, we're up to voting for this, so all discussions finished? All right, roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Stipp?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Hampton?
No.
Councilmember Kano?
Nay.
Councilmember Pizzillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
The motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just a second here. Will the city clerk please read ordinance number 2021-1499 by title only, please?
Adopt ordinance number 2021-1499, conditionally rezoning approximately 20 acres of land located at the northeast corner of Cotton Lane and Canyon Trails Boulevard from the Canyon Trails Phase 1 planned area development to the multifamily MF24 zoning district, amending the zoning map of the city of Goodyear, providing for non-abridgment, providing for corrections, providing for severability, providing for an effective date, and providing for penalties.
Thank you. Can I have a motion and second to approve the ordinance 2021-1499? Did I hear that motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, a motion by Councilman Campbell, a second by Vice Mayor. Open for council discussion. I think we've had all we can do. Roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Stipp?
Aye.
Councilmember Hampton?
Nay.
Councilmember Kano?
Nay.
Councilmember Pizzillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
The motion carries.
All right, great. The next public hearing is to consider the Pueblo Verde Storage Special Unit Permit request for convenience store and mini storage on a property zone C1 neighborhood commercial. I'm opening the public hearing. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening, Mayor Lord and Council. I'm here before you this evening with a request from Greg Davis to hear a special use permit for a property within the city. This property is located in central Goodyear, and it's approximately 3.8 acres. It is located on a portion of property at the southeast corner of Saraville Avenue and Yuma Road. The property is currently zoned C1 neighborhood commercial within the Pueblo Verde planned area development, and it is located on this map at the approximate location of the star right here. So zooming in a little closer, you can see that this project is within a portion of an undeveloped C1 neighborhood commercial center within Pueblo Verde planned area development. The property is west of the Goodyear Fire Station 184, south of existing single-family homes within Wildflower Ranch, north of existing single-family homes within Glenmont Estates Pueblo Verde development, and east of custom homes within the Vanderbilt Farms, Saraville Farms development, Saraville Gardens. So just for a little bit more context, the property we're referring to today, or the portion of the property, is this red area that is within the blue area. The applicant intends to develop a portion of the vacant parcel within Pueblo Verde Glenmont Estates development into a self-storage facility and has submitted an application for this special use permit. The property where the storage facility is located consists of 3.8 acres, and an additional 2.7 acres will be at the hard corner of Saraville Avenue and Yuma Road. That section will not have buildings constructed on it at this time, but it will have some driveway access constructed. The site will contain 2 driveways, one coming from the north at Yuma, one coming from the west at Saraville Avenue. It will have parking, screen walls, landscaping, retention, and the storage facility. Improvements will be made to a portion of the unlandscaped median, which exists within Yuma Road, just north of the proposed storage facility. The proposed building will be 101,000 square feet approximately, and it will include indoor convenience storage or mini storage, and that will be contained within a 2-story building, and I'll point that out right here. This is the 2-story building component. The 2-story building will have internal loading and unloading, as well as on the south end, there will be some external loading doors on the first floor. The single-story buildings will also be contained on the site to the south. So these are the single-story buildings. Those will contain individual singular exterior roll-up garage doors for the individual storage units. The preliminary site plan shows that once redevelopment work is completed, the 2-story building will be 64,000 square feet, and the single-story buildings will collectively be 36,000 square feet approximately. There'll be 14 parking spaces made available to the office workers as well as the guests. The proposed hours of operation for the unit leaseholders will be Monday through Sunday between 5 a.m. and 10 p.m., and the applicant contemplates that the office will be open to the general public between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. In the image on the upper right, you will see what the building is intended to look like from the Yuma Road frontage. So that's the north side of the 2-story building. You'll see in the image on the bottom what it will look like from the, let's call it the Vanderbilt Farms perspective across that vacant field. And for residents that are within the Glenmont Estates neighborhood or Pueblo Verde, if they were to look over their backyard across a 30-foot landscape setback, this is the vantage that they might see. This is an enlarged image of the site plan. So again, the building on the north is, again, 2 stories in height. We'll have internal storage units with some external units on the ground floor facing into an internal yard. The buildings on the southeast, south, and southwest contain garage doors that all are accessible from the outside that will face into a yard. And the portions of the building that face outward on the first floor will be decorative walls so that the garage doors only face internal to that internal storage yard. So again, these one-story buildings are basically framing a wall, if you will, around the site. On the next slide, I want to talk particularly, though, about Building B, which is right here. It's a one-story building that connects to Building 2 to the south end of the property. So let's talk about that building on the next slide. The building proposes a 0-foot setback to the adjacent property line. That adjacent property line is the Goodyear Fire Station. Typically, as a standard, the city does not want parallel walls to exist next to one another if they are 20 feet or less from one another. Some of the reasons for that is we want to prevent people, trash, unsightliness from accumulating in this area or congregating in a narrowish area. We also do not want two walls built stacked adjacent to one another for a myriad of reasons. So to ensure that there's not a 21-foot gap, for example, we are proposing, there's a proposal that the storage building be placed at the 0-foot setback on the fire station site. Planning staff and the applicant are supportive of reducing the setback in this area to 0 feet and removing the existing western fire station wall so that the storage building now becomes the wall. So let me point at that. This is the north view. So this arrow is the west. This is the east-facing wall right here, so you can see what that looks like. You see this tall wall right here. That's this wall here. So if you were inside of the fire station, for example, you would now see this wall as opposed to the existing wall that's, let's call it 5-6 feet today. So again, this wall would be the new perimeter wall. So the wall that faces the fire station will also match the character and theme of the fire station as opposed to the remainder of the building, so it feels completed once it's done. And this would be subject to council and the city attorney's office coming up with agreements and or easements that need to be signed and recorded to protect us. Those deal points of that agreement are located in the stipulations packet that you have today. So again, if we're going to allow for the 0 foot, if you all approve this and approve the 0 foot, the next step would be the city attorney's office working with you all if signatures are needed for those easements and or agreements. I will highlight a few other stipulations. Similar to the last storage case you all heard back a few months ago in November 2020, windows should be tinted in a manner so that contents, decorations, and garage doors are not visible inside the building, and the window tinting should not create glare or reflection, harsh glare or reflection to those walking by. In Goodyear, particularly, garage and roll-up doors on buildings are typically screened, and you can see in cases of other storage units across the valley, that is not necessarily the case. Typically, what you'll see in some of those storage units are faux or real garage doors hovering above the building, illuminated all night, and what that effectively does is create unattractive architectural elements on the building. So this stipulation would prevent garage doors looking bright and lit up all day, all night, and fit more in the character with a neighborhood commercial center or small-scale commercial center. For example, in a normal neighborhood commercial center, you have slight views into buildings where customers enter. You don't have the entire building lit up all day and all night. So the areas in red do provide an opportunity for this business to have views into the store. So the office is exempt from that. The office is that place where customers see in. You can see there might be boxes or things of that nature at a more commercial, neighborhood commercial scale. The site is also between existing residential developments, as I mentioned earlier, in order to eliminate some of the lighting concerns. The lights shall have a sharp cutoff directional fixtures. All the lighting on site will be dimmed to 50% between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. And no wall-mounted lights will be allowed on the one-story buildings above a height of 8 feet. And then particularly buildings, Building D on the west side, Building E on the south side. West side of Building E, the west side of Building D, south side of Building G will not have lights on the buildings that are mounted in accordance with the stipulation. And the 10 p.m. time is actually 1 hour earlier than the ordinance would typically allow. Typically right now, you would have times a little later than that. So the applicant has agreed to limit the time that those lights would be on. We discussed the fire wall concern, or the ways to mitigate some of those concerns in a stipulation well. And again, to screen the garage and roll-up door-like features on the first floor in that internal yard, the screen, the gates that go across the driveways, those will also be screened as well. And they PVC, vinyl, and similar inserted gate materials will not constitute as architecturally designed in an appropriate manner. So all those, and the garage doors in those yards should generally match the color of the building so that, again, you don't have that, that color spectrum. So staff has evaluated the impact of this proposed special use permit on the greater community, and with no major concerns being found aside from those mentioned by the stipulations related to the fire station wall, noise, light, and neighborhood continuity through aesthetics, staff recommends approval for the special use permit for convenient mini storage on 3.8 acres of property zoned C1 neighborhood commercial located southeast of Saraville Avenue and Yuma Road, subject to the stipulations in the staff report. If you do opt to approve this, I would ask for one change in the stipulations. I would request that if you approve it, you modify stipulation 6 to remove the last sentence. There is a Scribner's error as it relates to the height of the building, the roof and the parapet height. C1 already has a maximum height of 30 feet. This development's coming in under that 30 feet, so we don't believe that last sentence is needed. And again, there's a Scribner's error in that. So with that, turn it back to you, Mayor.
Thank you. Is the applicant here? Would they
The
like to
applicant
speak?
is here. They don't have a presentation, but they are willing to speak if you have any questions for them.
All right, fine. That's what, maybe wait till the council has a few questions for you. I know you do very well when you're up there, but we'll go with this. Would anybody in the audience like to speak? All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. Can I have a motion, a second, to approve the request for a special use permit for the convenience storage, mini storage, on an approximately 3.8 acre property, zone C1, neighborhood commercial, located the southeast of Saraville Avenue in Yuma, subject to stipulation. Do I hear that motion?
So moved.
Second.
I've heard a motion by Councilman Zillo and a second by Councilman Campbell. Open for council discussion. Councilman Campbell.
Okay. So Christopher, I have a quick question. When you were talking about the lighting, that it can't be over 8 feet tall on the buildings, if we allow this to happen and this building actually is backed up to our fire station, are we sure that the lighting that's on that building is not going to overflow onto our fire station and hit any of their windows or anything? Because I'm not sure where our sleeping quarters are in the fire station, having not been there. So I'm wondering, you know, if we've taken that into consideration. I know you need to have lights at evening because you don't want it all dark, just for security protection.
Yeah, so let me give you a little bit of additional context on the lighting stipulation. The lighting stipulation was really meant for the one-story buildings to protect the residents. What I will tell you, though, is these buildings that I'm pointing at with my mouse, they're approximately 13 feet in height. So when we're talking about lighting on the one-story buildings being at 8 feet or lower, there's additional building that goes up to 13 feet in height
And then
to
they're
block
8
that.
feet above that.
Pardon?
It's 8 feet above the 13.
It's below. We want the lighting to be below the 8-foot marker, and the building height itself is going to be approximately 13 feet.
Okay.
The other thing I will point out is that this wall is on this part of the property here. Before you even get to the fire station building, there's a parking lot. So you have a drive aisle and 2 rows of parking. So the portion of that building that's really being blocked is much further from the actual residential quarters of the fire station.
And what does our fire station say about this proposed?
The fire station, the fire chief will work, and he's very welcome to speak for himself, but
He's not here.
Oh, he's not here. They were supportive of us moving towards the deal point section, if that's what your direction is, and as a way to help make sure that the city is not put in a situation that we might not want to be in as it relates to the timing, security concerns, removal of that wall that exists there and the replacement, and, you know, mitigating any landscaping or things of that nature that are fixed. So the deal points found in the stipulations, I believe they were supportive of, as it gives us an opportunity to make sure that we're protecting ourselves with our help from our friends in legal.
Okay, and my very last question, this will be across the street from Fry's.
This will be diagonal from Fry's. So let me,
Well, it's across the street to me.
yes, so Burger King. I know you love Burger King. The Burger King's about right
I
here.
know exactly where that is.
I know you do. So there's the Burger King. I think this is a bank, but no, it's a bank.
Yeah.
And then there'll be some dirt and then the storage. But Burger King, fancy, I call it fancy fries, and then the storage is catty corner.
Okay, because they have the white picket fence and everything, and
Absolutely.
and when the fire station was built, it was an unusual design to begin with, and it was a very unique design. And I'm happy to know that they're willing to make their building look similar to that, so that it is cohesive to the neighborhood.
I'll give a quick shout out to the developer. They've been very accommodating for some things that we've requested. I think of note, you'll see that the roofs of this building, they're the same type of metal in our fire station. They added brick in there. They added some trellises to kind of match that agrarianness of the character of the area. So they're very conscientious to work with us to make sure this, if it's going to be a storage unit, it's going to be a nice looking one that blends with the community.
Well, thank you. That's all my questions.
Councilman Kano?
I just want to say I appreciate all the work that has gone into creating this elevation and this layout. I think it is exceptional. Does not look like a typical storage place. I think it's well sited and looks great. So thank you for the extra time and effort to come up with a very quality product.
Any other comments? Councilman Hampton?
Yeah, it looks like you had a lot of input from the community, the surrounding neighborhood, everything like. I used to live right in that neighborhood myself, so I was really. I guess I was somewhat surprised that there wasn't as much, especially from Vanderbilt Farms, that they didn't have any negative comments on this location here, or the neighborhood really. But it seems like the developer really made an effort to address every single concern here, very extensively. So yeah, I wasn't going to be supportive of it originally just because of the location and everything, but it sounds like the residents aren't as concerned as I was. So, but yeah, if you're gonna have a storage unit, I think I'd like it to look like this in that area, and it doesn't take the frontage. We can still put something for the most part on the corner if it's another gas station or a small shopping or something to that nature. So, and how tall was that wall that they're going to replace again?
It's approximately 13 foot in height.
And it was originally, how tall was it before?
The current
originally?
wall right now is, say, about 5 or 6 feet in height.
Okay.
So there'll be more security of height for a wall there.
Yeah, and there's not any. I don't know why there would be. Shouldn't be barbed wire or. Is there any structural security? Any structural security along the side, like barbed wire, not barbed wire, but any kind of stuff so no one jumps over the fence type equipment?
If somebody jumped over that fence, they'd have a fun way on the way down.
Yeah, 13 foot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I could probably do it, but yeah, but yeah. Okay. Yeah, so I was curious about just some of those specifics. So thank you for the for working so hard on this project. I know it's been quite a while. You guys been working on this.
It's been a while, but the developer's been very reached out to the neighborhood quite a bit and worked with them to get their support.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Loretano?
I appreciate your presentation. And Brandon, if someone jumped over that fence, they'd be very happy the fire department's next door because they're going to need them. Yeah, I think it's great. I think it looks good. And I also like the fact that it acts as a buffer for that other parcel, because storage units are not routinely, people don't go to them every day. So the traffic is a little bit lower for those. And if something like a gas station or something that's a little higher traffic goes in there, I think we've created a good buffer. So I appreciate it. So thank you to the applicant.
Vice Mayor Stitt?
Let's talk a little bit about the neighborhood involvement, because initially there was tremendous opposition to this project being here, and quite frankly, I'm not sure that a storage unit in the middle of a residential area is the best fit. So talk to me about what's changed. When was our last public meeting, comment, et cetera? So fill me in a little bit on that.
I believe the date was actually December 1st because that was my mom's birthday. So the applicant had a neighborhood meeting out on site. So they actually went to this cul-de-sac. We had a meeting here. They brought out lights and display boards. They greatly changed the architecture of the building to be more fitting in with the surrounding conditions. One of the things that I heard as just a staff member observing in my jeans, I was just hanging out there. What I heard was that the residents were happy about the one-story component adjacent to their neighborhood for the reasons that were mentioned here, the buffer between any future uses, and that this neighbor might be a quieter neighbor than, say, other items that could be found in a C1 district that might have trucks backing up or things of that nature. So it sounded like the residents became supportive of this because of that one-story buffer and that opportunity that they wouldn't really have any neighbors there. Also, I will say that the applicant worked with a lot of them, actually went in their private backyards and got tree requests from them. So when I had ideas of what I thought good trees were, well, the applicant already had those because he worked directly with the residents to make sure that the trees they wanted behind their fences were the ones that they were going to get.
And how far is the last building? So if you can go back to that.
30 feet. Is that what you're asking? This distance from
Yeah.
this building, where's the mouse? The back of this building to here is 30 feet. So they would also landscape this area here. And then the residents also didn't want the opportunity for any cut-through traffic from their HOA landscape area into the storage area or the commercial center. So the applicant is going to be building also a wrought iron fence in this area here because they didn't really want the potential for future cut-through there. So there'll be a view fence here.
Okay. Then the last question that I have is about the parcel itself. The way that this is situated with a driveway all the way down at that southern end and then another driveway at the eastern end, future development of that corner seems like it's going to be limited by those driveway cuts.
So the intent of those driveway cuts is to be shared. So right now, this is not a parcel. It's a part of a parcel. It's my understanding that the applicant would likely split the parcel, or there might be a minor land division of some sort. So the driveway that is here is actually likely going to fall on both property lines potentially in the future and be shared between the center. And then this really is setting up a future driveway if other pads are to be constructed, that they could share that as well.
Okay, so we're not limiting future development on that corner?
Not at this time. And once we got a site plan, for example, in, we would look at that based on our engineering standards, our driveway standards, and make sure that they were properly spaced. But the intent is right now that those two driveways that they plan on building would be shared amongst the entire center.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Councilman Pizzillo.
No, I just want to mention I appreciate the presentation, and I do appreciate the effort they put in the facade and working with the fire. So again, I'm going to support the project.
Well, I think it's terrific. I think the work that the developer, designer did with our city is really what we want to happen over and over again, and it doesn't. So, and they listen to the public. I went over there and looked at that piece of property, and it is kind of a difficult one to put something on. And even though people maybe have this vision of a storage unit and they've seen designs of other ones, I think the design is going to look much better than most of them are. But it doesn't bring a lot of cars in. It's not a gas station. It's not something that, and they developed the building to look more like the neighborhood. And it sits right next to our fire station. And I think they did a real good job in that design. And I appreciate how careful they're handling the fire department because they know issues that can happen with them. So I'm very happy the time they've taken, the care they've taken. I'm 100% for this one. So any other discussion? Yes.
Mayor, I would like to make an amendment to the motion that we do change at Christian's recommendation to change stipulation 6 and remove the last sentence.
So you're making the motion for us.
Well, we need to amend the current motion.
Right. And you're seconding that,
There we go.
okay. So.
Is that okay?
Okay, all right, then all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
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 Oppose? The ayes have it. And now what? Now vote on the original motion. Okay, so now we're going to vote on the motion and for the special use permit. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? The ayes have it. Christian, thanks so much. You do a great presentation. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, the next public hearing.
Thank you very much, my kind of hearing.
See, we didn't need you come forth tonight. The next public hearing is to consider a use permit for a convenient use restaurant with drive-through. Open the public hearing. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. Steve Correcchia, Principal Planner. Tonight's request is a use permit for a Filiberto's drive-through restaurant. And our location, this is the 303 here, Indian School Road. The parcel is located within a triangular commercial piece located at the southeast corner. Surrounding this parcel, we have UPS to the north, and then we have Pebble Creek wrapping around. Here is the RV storage golf course facilities within Pebble Creek. And then within this commercial area, right now the only thing developed is the Refinery Church and the required access to Indian School Road. Property is located within the PV 303 PAD, and it's about 1,800 acres, stretches from Camelback down to Thomas on either side of the 303. It's mostly industrial, but you do have some commercial areas. Those are the orange areas. And this is, again, where we are tonight, right here in this orange triangular piece. It's designated as East 2 in the PAD, and it is commercial, and because it is commercial, drive-through restaurant does require a use permit. And that use permit is for the drive-through portion of the restaurant. The pad itself is a little under an acre, 0.83 acres. Restaurant 2,200 square feet with the drive-through component. The restaurant will complete their pad improvements. The master developer will then complete the other improvements surrounding the pad. And this is an overall site, kind of blows up around the pad. This is the Filiberto's pad here. And I want to show this because this is an existing traffic signal at 166 and UPS Way. So there'll be a traffic signal at Indian School Road. Master developer will complete some of these surrounding improvements that you see here. And then there's also an existing driveway cut here. So there'll be an opportunity for right in, right out here. So customers accessing this Filiberto's, if they want to go west, they can access an existing traffic signal. If they want to go east, there's an opportunity here for a right out. And this zooms in a little more to the Filiberto's pad. They're going to put the restaurant basically in the center of the pad. The drive-through component now will enter here on the south side. There'll be a dual component, converge into a single lane, kind of wraps around the east side here. This will be the drive-through pickup window here. And as customers exit, they can go west and east. And again, if they go west, they can get to the existing traffic signal. If they want to go east, they can take the right turn here and take a right out onto Indian School Road. These are the proposed elevations. Again, at a use permit stage, we're not looking at site plan level of detail, building elevations. This is the first proposal that the applicant did provide. And I just want to let council know we're currently working with the developer now, texture, material, and colors, knowing the council's direction for what they would like to see on elevations. So that is something ongoing. We're working with the developer and they're working with us. So we will come up with something that meets the council expectations for building at this location. For the use permit evaluation criteria, this is a synopsis of what's in the staff report, what's in greater detail there. But what we do find is, given its location within a commercial center with a buffer of the Pebble Creek RV storage and golf course facility, that this will not be this will have no adverse effect on any of the single family in the area. It should not affect other commercial uses, as it'll be like similar intensities, similar to the Filiberto's. And then because it's a drive-through use, there are additional evaluation criteria. And we do find the parcels adequate in size. All the queuing for the site will occur on the site. There should be no impact to any of the public streets, especially Indian School Road. Hours of operation, again, no restrictions given a distance of almost 700 feet to Pebble Creek, existing commercial that's planned for the area. And the only other concerns, we really did not find any with the use permit. Most of the site and technical details, we'll handle that with the site plan review. Public participation, staff conducted all of the required notice for citizen review and public hearing. There's been no opposition voiced about this use permit either as a result of any of the notice or at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. With all that, staff, we are recommending approval. Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval at their April 14th meeting. There are 6 stipulations in the staff report that we would like attached to the approval. With that, Mayor, that concludes my presentation. Staff's available for questions. The applicant's also here. They do not have a formal presentation, but they can answer any questions.
I appreciate that. Are there any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
All right. Then I'm going to close the public hearing. Can I have a motion a second to recommend the approval of the request for a use permit for a convenience use restaurant with a drive-through and on approximately 0.83 acre parcel located near the southeast corner of Loop 303 and Indian School Road within the PV 303 planned area development subject to stipulations. Can I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I heard a motion from Councilman Kano and a second from Councilman Loretano. Open for council discussion. Yes, Councilman Kano, Hampton, sorry.
So I wanted to clarify. So the roads that are going in there, are they paying portion of the roads because there's just dirt there right now? So the infrastructure there, are they helping to pay for there a certain percentage, or are they paying the whole thing? Or are we paying part of it as well? I'm just curious how that works out.
Mayor, council members, I do not know the private proportions or that they will pay other than at site plan review. Staff will be concerned that the improvements are in and that it will have access to the public street. That's what we will be looking for. Their agreements on their internal agreements are not necessarily so much what we're concerned with, as long as somebody does it in terms of meeting all our requirements for access. So what we have been told is Filiberto's will be responsible for their pad, everything internal to their pad. The master developer will be doing a lot of the surrounding improvements, especially the access way, unless they get another user to come in, and maybe it all depends on timing.
Okay.
So
I guess I'm used to more of a complete shopping center and then a dirt in the middle of a parking lot. So just a little opposite from that right now.
The
So
applicant wanted to address
and
that?
I understand. The master developer is going to be helping with that. The other question I had is, so the traffic, once they're coming out of the drive-through, they can go back around over to the light. That's to get west, correct?
Mayor, council members, yes, they will have access via this proposed access here. There also should be, once this site develops, probably cross access through here as well.
I would imagine. Okay. And then, I don't know if you can talk about, there is a user that's south of that, correct? I'm not sure if they're supposed to be coming in sooner than later.
Mayor, council members, we have seen activity for the east side. I'm not aware of what's coming here yet.
Okay.
The master developer may know more.
Okay, maybe it's just speculative right now. Okay. No, I like the that they're going to work on the elevation for us. I think a lot of people will eat there, and especially with all the UPSs and other users, and it's 24/7, correct?
Yes, sir.
So, okay. Thank you.
Any other comments? Councilman Pizzello?
Just a general question. You feel comfortable there's enough queuing at this particular location? Because apparently now with the COVID and et cetera, there seems to be a lot more activity on the drive-throughs and to go in and eat. And I can just name a few, but I won't go into those, where sometimes some of the queuing gets pretty nasty out there, overlapping into other businesses. And you feel this queuing's enough set up in here?
Mayor, council members, I guess 2 parts to that. It does meet the minimum requirement that staff would require of this drive-through. Depending on how successful the restaurant is, that's another matter. We always ask for as much queuing as we can. What we found with this site is even if it's wildly successful and the queue backs up, there'll be no impact to any of our public streets is a main concern we look at, as well as fire access. So our team felt like there was enough access points to the building that it would never be cut off should the queue extend beyond these points here, because these are the menu boards. They had the six spaces available here, as well as these here to the window. If it did back up into here or into down here into this drive aisle, that you would have other access to the building.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman
I just
Campbell?
have a real quick question. Is this location right at UPS Drive?
Mayor, council members, it's just to the east. Here's
Just to the
UPS
east of
Drive.
it.
Yes.
So then Refinery Church is to the left, and it won't impact any of their church going. There won't be a traffic issue there with them exiting or.
Mayor and council, that's a good question. Thinking of probably different peak times between the church and the restaurant.
Mhm.
I can't say there would never be a conflict, but with the Refinery Church at this location coming up to access the restaurant or Indian School Road here, with the restaurant having also another opportunity for a ride out here.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Does the applicant want to speak? No?
We don't need to speak.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other discussion? All right, we're going to vote on this. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. The next public hearing item is to consider a rezone of Pebble Creek Phase 2 Northwest Pickleball and Recreation Plan Area Development. Open the public hearing. Kristen, I think you have this one.
Mayor, I'm reclusing myself for a possible conflict of interest.
All right, did the lawyer get that? Councilman Campbell is recusing herself.
I'll note that.
All right, thank you. Ron, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. PowerPoint looks like it's a PDF, but we'll work with it, all right?
Okay.
All right, good evening, Mayor. I'm back again, I guess. I'm here with a request from Ed Bull on a rezoning case for a property within the city. The property is approximately 5.97 acres, and it is located within Pebble Creek. The property is currently zoned PAD under the Pebble Creek Golf Resort Phase 2 zoning. Zooming in a little closer, you can see that the project is within the Tuscany Falls section of Pebble Creek. More specifically, it is west of Saraville Avenue, which serves as a gated private street in this area, south of Indian School Road, and the RV storage along Indian School. On the next slide, I'll zoom in a little bit closer so you have a bit more context. But I will point out on this slide that the site we're discussing today is located up here. This is Saraville, Indian School. This is Clubhouse Drive as it comes into Pebble Creek. This is the existing community center at Clubhouse in approximately Saraville Avenue. Within the northwest section of the Tuscany Falls side of Pebble Creek, the site is south of vacant land that is part of PV 303 and future home of Filiberto's. It is on the south side of an HOA perimeter wall, which is located right here, and that's an existing feature. It is west of Fairmont and north along 165th Avenue, which is a private street. So this is Fairmont, 165th Avenue. It is north of the existing golf course, which you can see here. And it is east of Pebble Creek Unit 43B, which are these townhouses that are located right here. For a little history on the zoning of the property, The subject property is located within the development known as Pebble Creek Golf Resorts Phase 2, as many of you are well aware, which was zoned Final Planned Area Development Zoning District back in 1998. The Pebble Creek Golf Resort Phase 2 PAD established land uses throughout all of Pebble Creek Phase 2, including the subject property. The original land use designation for the subject property was residential and golf course. So back in 1998, it was residential and golf course. The original land use, so then following the passage of Arizona Senate Bill 1062, which provided land use compatibility and noise attenuation standards for the developments around military bases, the council at that time adopted ordinance number 2002-782, which modified the permitted uses for the subject property to recreational vehicle storage and golf maintenance. So you'll see in the 2005 land use map the reflection of that council action. So the approximate area of this zoning case we're talking about today is right here where the RV and golf course maintenance is today. And just for a little bit of background, Luke Air Force Base would be kind of over here. So the path, the flight path, that's why these houses were moved out of that area. And it was replaced at that time with RV storage and golf course maintenance. The proposal before you today seeks to amend the permitted uses for the 5.97 acre site to allow for a mix of recreational uses, including pickleball courts that are Luke Air Force Base compatible. So today we are talking about approximately the area in this orange square that is right now zoned golf course maintenance and RV storage. So that is the history of the zoning thus far. So the site proposes 8 principal uses: pickleball courts, tennis courts, basketball courts, remote control vehicle tracks, shuffleboard, bocce ball, archery ranges, dog parks and or pet runs, and other uses that are analogous to those uses that I've mentioned above, as determined by the zoning administrator. For example, if Robeson or the Pebble Creek HOA said they wanted to add a cornhole court, or as Midwesterners call it, a bag toss, that would fall within the analogous uses to those that I've mentioned above, and it would not require rezoning. If they said they wanted an outdoor gun range, then that would not be an analogous use, and the answer to that would be come back for a rezone. In addition to the uses, there are various development standards approved within this document. They must provide a minimum of 49 parking spaces, 2 spaces for pickleball court, 1 space per 250 feet of shaded pavilion, and a maximum building height of 25 feet. There is also a 10-foot perimeter building setback, and active outdoor recreation uses may not be closer than 130 feet to a residential home. Light poles may not exceed 20 feet in height. Walls and screen wall heights may extend up to 10 feet, and boundary court screening may come as close to 5 feet to a perimeter wall. Those are some of the standards for future site plans will be checked against. So just so you know, as you're aware, after this rezoning case has an outcome, if it is successful in passing, it will go to site plan, and staff would then check the site plan against these standards that you see here and in the PAD document. Also, the hours of operation will be restricted from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. So again, if the zoning is approved, the site plan that we anticipate Robeson will submit will include the initial construction of 16 pickleball courts, a bathroom facility, drinking fountains, and a parking lot with approximately 69 parking spaces. We would also anticipate a landscape plan to include decomposed granite across the balance of the site, and wall plans for the courts, screening, and noise buffering as well. So it is my understanding that after the initial construction of this facility that you see before you today, that this whole site would be turned over to the Pebble Creek HOA, and then the zoning that, if that's approved, that HOA could make the determination if there are future improvements to the site. So again, after this rezoning process, it goes to site plan. So let's discuss the public input. On February 23rd, 2021, a virtual meeting was held for the proposed rezoning with more than 177 residents attending online. Unfortunately, due to some technical issues, 90 residents left the meeting prior to the question and answer section that the applicant facilitated. And as a result of that first meeting, planning staff received resident concerns including noise, light, hours of operation, location of the proposed facilities, proximity to existing homes, wall screen height, and then cut-through vehicular traffic on residential streets, as well as on 165th Avenue. And there were some requests about additional uses to be considered and some concerns about the loss of RV storage. After the first neighborhood meeting, the Pebble Creek Pickleball Club also sent emails to members asking them to reach out to you all directly, and I'm very well aware that you all received some outreach there. So that caused some significant outreach to occur. As a result of those technical issues, though, at the first neighborhood virtual meeting, the applicant hosted a second virtual meeting to discuss the project and receive some additional input. The meeting took place on March 16th, 2021, and had approximately 26 online resident participants. And in order to notify residents of that second neighborhood meeting, the applicant sent an email invitation to 251 residents who registered for the initial meeting. And they also sent letters to 186 property owners who received postcards concerning the first virtual meeting. The general questions from that March 16th, 2021 meeting included sound and screening wall height, access to the construction yard via the proposed facility once Pebble Creek reaches its build-out, the ability to have a dog park on site, which that is now a use that's allowed, bicycle parking, traffic on 165th Avenue, and future plans for the extension of Fairmont Avenue. Additionally, the tennis courts at the Tuscany Falls recreational area were a topic of discussion, the height of the light poles that were proposed and the impact on the property values, HOA dues and maintenance costs, hours of operations, and the projected timing of that facility's opening once it gets through the process if it is successful today. A public hearing was held before the Planning and Zoning Commission on April 14th, 2021 to consider the rezoning of the property to planned area development. 13 members from the public wished to speak. 9 members from the public spoke in support of the rezoning. 4 members from the public spoke in opposition. One of the speaking members presented a petition to the commission. The petition contained 53 pages with 926 signatures. All 926 signatures were in support of the rezoning and none were opposed to the rezoning. 2 members who spoke in favor might not have provided a speaker request card, just in case you're looking in your packet and wondering if there's a discrepancy between the numbers. 64 members from the public filled out comment cards and indicated they did not wish to speak. All 64 of those cards were from the public and indicated support for the rezoning. None indicated opposition to the rezoning. 6 members of the public requested to have emails read into the public record. 1 email was in support of the rezoning. 5 emails were read in opposition to the rezoning. One of the emails read into the public record contained a petition as an attachment, and the petition contained 3 pages signed with 52 signatures. One of those signatures was in support of the rezoning, and 51 signatures were opposed to the zoning. 2 emails were requested to be included in the Planning and Zoning Commission packet. One of those emails was supportive of the rezoning. One of those emails was against the rezoning. Additionally, the Planning and Zoning Commission was made aware that staff had received or been forwarded additional email correspondence from approximately 305 senders. 291 of those emails that I read generally were supportive of the rezoning, and 14 were generally opposed to the rezoning. I'll also state, I believe, 4 or so emails came in today that were supportive of the rezoning, as well as I believe an HOA email that was also received from HOA members of the Pebble Creek community that were in support of the project. Comments in favor of the rezoning stated reasons such as increased property and home values, pickleball being the reason they moved to Pebble Creek, overcrowding at the existing Tuscany Falls courts, the growing popularity of the sport, club members investing money towards the project construction, and the ability to host tournaments within Pebble Creek and bringing tourism dollars to Goodyear, the long travel times to the City of Surprise courts, opportunities to socialize and make friends, and the sound being less than the Indian School Road traffic or Luke Air Force Base traffic. Comments in opposition to the rezoning stated reasons such as an increase in sound and a different sound than that which is present on Indian School Road and Luke Air Force Base for a longer and more continuous period of time, the desire to not have national tournaments in Pebble Creek, a cited internal Pebble Creek survey in which most surveyed residents stated they did not wish to expand pickleball, opposition to 2 separate pickleball court locations, increased traffic on 165th Avenue, concerns with traffic on Indianola and Fairmount Avenues, membership requirements to use the courts, additional maintenance costs to the HOA residents, noise and the inadequacy of the proposed sound walls. The original proposed time of 10 p.m., I will make a point that the applicant has reduced that time to now be between 6 a.m. and 9 p.m., but again, there is still opposition in the community to those times. Robeson's investment in the construction versus investing in other amenities, light pollution, interference with the existing golf course tee boxes and the golf course, the desire for other ideas such as expanding the existing dog park or locating pickleball closer to the Arizona State Route 303 loop or other properties in Pebble Creek. And residents stated they moved specifically to the northwest section of Pebble Creek to be away from the recreational noises and amenities and facilities. After public discussion, the commission voted 4-1 to recommend the approval of that proposed zoning. With that, the recommendation before you tonight includes approving the requested rezone of the property to PAD, which would include an amendment to the existing Pebble Creek Golf Resorts Phase 2 to include the Pebble Creek Phase 2 Northwest Pickleball and Recreational PAD for the 5.97 acres described in this presentation. I believe the applicant, Mr. Bull, is here and he would like to give you a presentation before you discuss. But with that, I will turn the meeting over to you, Mayor.
He's welcome. The applicant would like to speak at this point. All right. Mr. Bull?
Christopher, how do I advance the, if mine can be queued up, how do I advance? Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Ed Bull, 1850 North Central. Thank you for having us here this evening. If I may take this off. As you know, my preferred position at your council hearing is to agree with the commission and staff and sit down. Here tonight, I agree with the commission and staff, but I suspect I should give a presentation and would like, if possible, to reserve a couple minutes for rebuttal as well, if you'll allow that, please, Mayor and Council. As you know, we're here with recommendations for approval, and we appreciate them. I want you to also keep in mind that this facility inside of Pebble Creek, once built, will be owned and operated by the HOA. So as we talk about hours or other kinds of things like that, while the zoning will allow, perhaps, allow, if approved, operation from 6 till 9, the HOA could constrict that if they want, or they could allow some of these uses that's provided in the zoning booklet. But according to Jack Sarsom is here, he currently envisions this as being certainly predominantly a pickleball facility. Additional land within the approximately 6 acres is a restroom and walls and trees and other kinds of things, parking and so on. But it could also include some of these other uses within the zoning. But Jack envisions that when the HOA discusses those additional uses, it's more likely to be something more passive, like a little park adjacent to the Ramada and so on. We can get into more details on that if and when you want, because we know you have a lot of communications to you, many in support, some in opposition. We respect everybody's position, but fundamentally, I perceive from participating in both neighborhood meetings, a number of other emails and calls and the commission hearing and so on and so forth, that the issues are primarily concerned with noise, traffic, lights, not exclusively those, but primarily those three, and I want to address all three of those. And then I may be, if given the opportunity, want to go into some more detail on the disclosures provided in ADRE public reports in 43B versus 43A, because there may be some confusion over that. But be that as it may, when we look at this aerial, which is very similar to what Christian had up on the screen. This aerial clouds around the site, which is highlighted in yellow. It's very far north in the overall Pebble Creek development. It's close to Indian School. It's across the street from the UPS facility. It's close to the 303, and it's an area where it was decided through legislation that houses cannot be built here. It's an area that's currently used for RV storage, but much of the RV storage will be preserved on another part of the site. It is, as I think you picked up on in the prior case, it is very close to where you just approved the Filiberto's drive-through, which is just kind of north and east of this red clouded area that's about the approximately the 6 acres. When I refer to some of the things that have been done, you'll hear me talk about proactively Robeson Communities in conjunction with input from a variety of residents within Pebble Creek, proactively designed a number of things into this development, recognizing compatibility with existing and future neighborhoods is important. I can't point to it, but immediately east of the roughly 6 acres is parcel 43B. That's the closest existing parcel. We'll talk about that more. South of 43B is 43A. We can talk about that more. Immediately south of the nearly 6 acres is future parcel 45, which is zoned and approved for residential homes. As we look at this aerial and go to this site plan, the blue areas are the proposed pickleball courts. There's 16 of them. Just like the 6 acres is pushed as far north as it can go within Pebble Creek, those proposed pickleball courts are as far north as they can go within the facility. The facility, as you see, goes all along the area where the courts are, plus comes down further south to provide a bathroom, a ramada, some open space area, landscaping, and so on. And importantly, that bold red line that's on there that Christian may be able to point to, that bold red line is representative of a acoustical wall that will be a minimum of 9 feet high. The zoning would allow it to go up to 10, but recognizing it's a wall on top of a berm, there'll be some fluctuation in height. So a note on a subsequent plan I'll put up here in a minute notes that as staff reviews it through site plan review, that acoustical wall will be a minimum of 9 feet high. The bathroom facility, of course, is 1 story. The ramada is 1 story. Part of what this exhibit shows is to the nearest existing home in parcel 43B to our east. That nearest existing villa is nearly 600 feet from the closest pickleball court. There may be some confusion by some who sent emails or otherwise about where the pickleball courts are versus where, say, the bathroom will be. But the courts are the blue areas, the closest court to an existing home, owned actually by Robeson, is my understanding currently, is 590 feet or nearly 2 football fields away from the nearest court. So it's separated by distance, by a parking area, by landscaping, and by a wall that will be a minimum of 9 feet tall. The owner of the home under that 450 that's there, that's measuring 450 from the restroom facility, I'm not sure if he's here this evening or not. Someone read a letter in support from that person during the Planning Commission hearing, and he was comparing how he's in support here and how he has knowledge about living in relative near pickleball facilities of 450 feet is near, or 590 feet is near, because he lived next to one in a different development in a different community. So he understands it. I don't know that he's even a pickleball player, but he's supportive of this facility and this location. In response to some of the issues that we knew were of concern to neighbors, a traffic study was conducted. We can get into more detail if you want, but one of the primary points pointed out to us was the ability of Fairmont, which is at more or less east-west street between 43B on the north and 43A on the south. Can Fairmont carry residential traffic plus pickleball traffic? Long story short is, according to the traffic analysis, and we can go into more detail if you want, Fairmont has about 5 times as much capacity as will be demand through the existing homes, the future homes, and the pickleball facility itself. So there's plenty of street capacity, and Fairmont is a collector street in the city's hierarchy of streets. We also knew that pushing the pickleball courts as far away from existing or future homes was the right thing to do. But going further, noise was studied by an acoustical consultant who's done that for more than 25 years without a noise wall to the nearest home, that one that's about 580 feet away. That noise level would have been about 48 dBA. However, with the 9-foot wall, it drops all the way down to 39 dBA. It's a tall wall, or a wall on top of a berm. It's very effective in doing its job. It's also effective in doing its job for buffering noise between the pickleball courts and the future homes in parcel 45 to the south. We went through a number of issues with neighbors through the first neighborhood meeting and the second neighborhood meeting. Christopher touched on many of them. Probably the question we were asked most is, when can the facility open? Because the existing facility is bursting at the seams. What can we do with respect to hours of operation?
To stop you.
Okay.
Just been notified by the city clerk. Is that what you're trying to get across to me? Yes.
Oh,
So
I'm
if
sorry.
you can just put a couple sentences to wrap it up.
These 2 pages, if you want to go into more questions on them, I'll be happy to go into them. This recaps some of what Christopher already said with respect to us expanding the notice for the second neighborhood meeting. I can go into as much detail as you want on ADRE public disclosures on 43B to the east or 43A further to the southeast. I'd also add, as may have been touched on, this is about a $3.3 million proposal. Robeson community, between construction cost and land, is contributing about 2.8 million. Members of the pickleball club is contributing another approximately $500,000. So it is heavy investment by not only Robeson, but by members who play pickleball and know that it ultimately will be owned and operated by the HOA. I thank you for your patience, and again, if allowed, would like a couple minutes for rebuttal.
Yeah, well, during the discussion, the council may want to ask some questions. So
Okay.
Thank you very much for your presentation. So I'm going to close the, tell me of the speaker cards.
We have a lot of speaker cards.
A lot of speaker cards. Would you like to give any directions as the
What I'll
clerk?
do is I'll start calling names for people to come up and speak.
Okay.
And there are a number of people that have signed up to speak that, or signed up to say that they either support or oppose, but they don't wish to speak, and I'll just
So they
call
have
their
a
name.
speaker that's going to be speaking about their
Yes.
points of the vote. Okay, good.
So
All right.
Daryl Berry.
And again, I'll just repeat this. I'm sure you've been in the audience tonight and you've heard this, but you're limited to 3 minutes. The yellow light will let you know you have 20 seconds left to speak. And before you begin, please identify yourself and clearly for the record, your name if you are Goodyear residents.
Okay, good evening. I'm Daryl Berry. I'm a homeowner in Pebble Creek Unit 43B, and I participated in the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting back on April 14th, and have reviewed many of the documents that Ed referenced regarding the proposed project. I respectfully request that whatever action you take tonight, that the following 4 stipulations be placed on the proposed project. Number 1, the traffic impact analysis for Pebble Creek Phase 2 stated that the posted speed limit on such roads as West Fairmount Avenue should be 25 miles per hour. I request that 25-mile-per-hour speed limit signs be placed along West Fairmount Avenue, west of Saraville, and that the speed limit be enforced. Second, most importantly, the acoustical analysis report dated March 16th, which I have a copy of here, that was prepared for the proposed project stated, and I quote, "To help block the noise, a 9-foot-high barrier, parens combination of wall and berm, has been proposed. Assuming this barrier is designed to block the line of sight from every court to the home, the expected noise level at the nearest home is 38.9 dBA. I request that such noise barrier, again, as Ed mentioned, be mandated for the proposed project, be a minimum 9 feet tall, with a 9-foot dimension measured at the inside face of the barrier adjacent to the pickleball court surface from the bottom of the barrier to the top of the barrier." Very important. Number 3, I request that lights for the proposed facility be of a directional type such that light pollution is minimized. I think that was stated. Number 4, time of day usage of the proposed pickleball facility has been proposed from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. I request that the starting time be changed to not earlier than 7 o'clock a.m. Next, I'd just like to clarify something that was presented and discussed during the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting on April 14th concerning the subdivision disclosure reports, and I have my copy from my home right here, specifically for Unit 43B. The following items are from the disclosure report. Quote, "To the west and north of Pebble Creek Unit 43B is vacant land, which is currently expected to be included with the Pebble Creek Resort community. However, the future use is currently undetermined. This vacant land could potentially be used for other future community amenities, including but not limited to dog parks, pickleball courts, fitness center, or other community sports facilities." Just like a couple seconds here. A brief history lesson. The disclosure report has an effective date of February 2014. I closed on my home in October of 2015. The proposed pickleball facility at the proposed location was first presented in mid-2019 and formally announced at the Pebble Creek HOA board meeting in February 2020, nearly 4.5 years after my closing.
Appreciate all the information you gave. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So Bob Phillip submitted a speaker request. He said he supports the staff recommendation, but he does not wish to speak.
Okay.
Catherine Villanueva supports staff recommendation, does not wish to speak. Martha Urban wishes to speak. And Bob Chester, you'll be up after her.
Mayor, members of the council.
Bend the microphone
Am I
down.
too
Yeah.
short?
Yeah, too short.
How's that? Is that better? Okay. I didn't bring my heels, sorry. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for this opportunity to speak today. My name is Martha Urban. I live in Goodyear, specifically the Pebble Creek HOA. I am here to present 53 petitions with a total of 926 signatures. These signatures are all Pebble Creek residents, as stated at the top of each petition, and they represent a broad spectrum of active people, tennis, softball, bocce, golf, and are all in favor of this project. It has come to my attention that you all have received an email trying to discredit these petitions by stating, and I quote, "There are duplicate signatures to increase their numbers," unquote. This is simply not true. I'm handing in the original petitions for you to view for yourselves. This is more than just pickleball. As was stated earlier, this is a $3+ million gift to the Pebble Creek community, with a section to be used for pickleball courts. The Pickleball Club, again mentioned earlier, is contributing $500,000 towards this project, which proves that pickleball is self-supporting and many, many residents have contributed thus far. It would really be a tragedy to deny this land to be rezoned so that it cannot be part of Pebble Creek, thereby benefiting the entire community. May the minutes of the meeting please show the delivery of these petitions.
Will somebody take these from her, give it to the lawyer, or give it to our city manager? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bob Chester?
Excuse me, mic's too low. Mayor, City Council, I kind of changed what I was going to say after hearing the invocation. And I thought I'd give you a little something on pickleball. The benefits of pickleball, the mental health, the anti-dementia and Alzheimer's of pickleball, all have been cited in the last few years from AARP, Harvard, Columbia Health, Mayo Clinic. If you do a Google search on it, you'll find all of the benefits for a community like ours. Not to mention heart disease and other things. The sport grew 21.3% in the COVID year of 2020. It's something that can be done safely, gives you some fellowship, lets you see people, but still maintains some social distancing. If you go right now on currently, LA Times, Chicago Tribune, New York Times, everyone is talking about how the growth of pickleball and what it's doing for the communities, active adult communities. And we are an active adult community, probably a hyperactive adult community. I'd point out JW Marriott just put in 17 courts at their Phoenix location. And they go in this order in their advertisement. They have a spa, dining, a water park, pickleball, restaurants, and then golf. And we all know that was a golf course for 50 years. So this is how the sport has changed. I was gratified to hear Mr. Berry kind of change some of the attitudes that we've heard from 43B. We have tried really hard, I'm past president of the club, to be good neighbors, to make sure that the pickleball noise is contained, the noise of people having fun is contained. It's already a noisy area. The Jets make it, I play golf out there, you can barely think. UPS is loud. Filiberto's, they'll be a neighbor, but everything's loud. But the sound walls work. We've done the science. We measured the sound behind our sound wall next to a green where people putt, and there's almost no sound depending on the wind directions. So we're really trying to be a good neighbor, and it's a rare partnership I think you've got to look at for the city of Goodyear. And what you guys are trying to do, which is help the citizens to get a sport and the developer to throw in a couple of, $2.5 million or better, along with our money for the good of our community. And this is an investment that'll last not just my lifetime, but other people's. So I'd like you to think about all the little stuff that goes into that. I know there's a NIMBY thing. Nobody wants something in their backyard, but I would argue that the property values and the benefit to the HOA outweigh the little bit. And, some of the people that live there want it. So that's all I've got. Thanks.
Thank you.
Jim Barbie? And after him is going to be Nancy Popenhagen.
Hi, my name is Jim Barb, and I'm a resident of Pebble Creek, 3668 North 160th Avenue. And I'm also the current president of the Pickleball Club. To say that we have an overcrowding problem is an understatement. We have numerous members now that will travel to Surprise City Courts just to be able to play. I receive so many emails about court availability and how can we get to play more? So this has been an ongoing problem. Currently, we have nearly 1,300 members in our pickleball club, and this number will only continue to grow as more people move in to Pebble Creek. So I just wanted to bring that to light. But I also would like to read an email. Like I said, I get all kinds of emails, but I thought this was a very interesting one as it relates to the noise issue that some of the people are concerned about. So this is from Jim Voice, who lives at 16464 West Piccadilly Road, which is in the area that people are concerned with. Jim's email states, I totally support the planned development of the pickleball courts and other facilities in Pebble Creek. My Pebble Creek Villa home on the corner of 165th and Piccadilly is the closest owner-occupied residence to the planned development. Pickleball has a reputation of being a somewhat noisy sport due to the ping of each shot, and as such, it is not appropriate in the immediate vicinity of residential homes. After reviewing the planned development, making several inquiries combined with past experience, I have no concern regarding the location of the proposed pickleball courts. Prior to moving to Pebble Creek in September 2020, I lived in another 55-plus community where the proximity of the pickleball courts was roughly the same as the proximity of the planned courts relative to my Pebble Creek home. My former home and my Pebble Creek home are both approximately the same distance from other sources of background noise, I-10 where I formerly lived and the 303 and Indian School Road here. The pickleball courts near my former home did not have any walls or any other sound damping structures. Nevertheless, at the distance, I needed to be outside on a calm day to hear the faint sounds of pickleball. The pickleball noise, or perhaps lack of noise, at my former home was absolutely no concern to me. In turn, I have no concern with the location of the proposed pickleball courts. When I purchased my Pebble Creek home in September 2020, I knew the courts were planned for an area where RVs are currently parked, far enough away to allay any concerns of noise. I was given additional comfort as I learned about the walls that would surround the pickleball courts and the noise testing level that had been done to allay concerns of residents in the area. In summary, I think the development as planned is well designed. It will not add to the noise level for my residents or any residences. The planned development will be a very welcome change from the dusty, barren space immediately across the street from me, and I eagerly anticipate the completion of the planned development.
Sir,
Thank you.
timing is just right. The red light came on.
Okay.
Nancy?
Good evening, Nancy Copenhagen, Pebble Creek and Goodyear resident. I just wanted to give you a little bit more context. I also moved to Pebble Creek about 6 years ago because it was an active adult community. I didn't know pickleball as a sport or even as a name. So I'm one of those converts that have learned to love the sport. Being an active community is very important to all of us. You all know, we don't want to just sit away in our golden years. And as it's been mentioned, we do have an active club. We also have a large club. We are the largest pickleball club in the state of Arizona and one of the largest in the nation. To give you a context of what overcrowded looks like, if we were swimmers, we would swim the length of a pool, get out, sit down for 15, 20 minutes, then get back in, swim the other length, get out, sit down, and so forth. If we were bicyclists, we'd ride around the block, stop, sit, wait, do another block. That's what it's like to play pickleball during our busy seasons, which is year-round. Ropes and communities aren't even all built out yet. And if we're having this problem now, can you imagine what our future will be? So I'm here to urge you to support this rezoning. I think it's a great thing for our community. Our pickleball club also works for our community. We are very active. We've done food drives. We have a huge toy drive for Christmas. We've got planned a school supply drive. So we, as one of our previous speakers said, we want to be good community members. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chris Stelplu. And she'll be followed by Wade Johnson.
Good evening. I'm Chris Stelplu, and I live in Pebble Creek as well. I'm a newer resident. And one of the things I did before buying a home in Pebble Creek was look at the city of Goodyear, because I feel like even though Pebble Creek is kind of a little city in and of itself, what else is out there for us beyond those walls of our community? And Goodyear's a wonderful place, and I'm so happy to be part of both communities. But I know that people that are looking at Pebble Creek are also looking elsewhere at 55-plus communities. And there's maybe other places that have better pickleball facilities, but they don't have the associated community backing them up, where we have so many wonderful restaurants and shopping and things to do that sitting here listening to you go over these things, I appreciate the due diligence you give to all the projects that you place. I'm asking you to approve this because it's a win-win for both of us. If we lose people who don't want to come to Pebble Creek because it doesn't have enough pickleball facilities or the things that they want to do, the city of Goodyear loses them as well. So I'm asking for your vote in approval tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wade Johnson.
Thank you very much.
Cynthia Schwartz. Or Steve Cookie Cook.
Maybe they're all outside. We have somebody checking, I don't know.
Bill Saunders. Carol Shoemaker.
Yeah, could we have somebody from staff go outside?
So on the ones that do not wish to speak are in opposition, I have a James Vigors,
All right, we have one
James
back.
Hunt, Pete Sadig, Ken Schumacher, and Diana Matney, Jane DeLos Angela.
Hello, I'm Steve Cookie Cook. I live at 16263 Westvale Drive, which is about 3 blocks or so from the new pickleball court, hopefully. The reason I live at that address is because it's an active adult community, and I wanted to live as close to the activities as I believe probably most people that live in the community do. It's if you type in Robeson Pebble Creek, see the first 10 things that come up all list Pebble Creek as an active adult community for over 55. And to give you an idea how active it is, Pebble Creek has over 100 activities, clubs, and classes. That's over 100. And pickleball, golf, probably the most common. Golf has 3 courses right now. Pickleball has 1, and it's the way it's growing. It obviously needs more. When you type in active adult communities, or when I did some of the sites, one site picked Pebble Creek as the #1 active adult community in Arizona. And you've got to believe it's because it's an active adult community. That's why people are coming in. They don't come here for the peace and quiet. They come here to continue being active adults. And it's growing. It's growing just like Goodyear's growing. When Goodyear grows, it doesn't have one shopping area, one grocery store, one medical place. It's growing and expanding, so it needs more. We need more. Like was said before, we have 1,300 members, and that's just the members. There's many people in Pebble Creek. They play pickleball there. without being members, which is fine with us. If you, imagine a lot of you are Facebook users, or just anytime you put in like location of where you're at, you put in the location when you're in Pebble Creek, and it brings up the things that are in your area. It brings up Pebble Creek Communities, the E.J. Robeson softball field, the Tuscany Country Clubs, and right up there at the top, and I didn't write this, this is the way it comes up. It says the pickleball heaven at Pebble Creek.
Sir,
And-
the red light is on, so we have to wrap this up.
And it is a pickleball heaven, and we need a little more heaven, and so we're hoping that you will use your vote to give us that extra little piece of heaven for us. So thank you for your time.
Bill Saunders?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Bill Saunders. My wife and I permanently moved to Pebble Creek from the Chicago area. Three main reasons for coming to Pebble Creek were pickleball, and the environment. Based upon speakers at the city council meeting, a few things caught my ear, and these are things that you've heard over and over tonight, so I will be brief. One person identified themselves as a golfing member and was not thrilled with our concept of adding 16 more courts, indicated that there were approximately 650 golfing members, and I thought that was an interesting number since pickleball has 1,300. Just an interesting little number. This is approximately 10 to 13% of our population. This person also commented that they felt pickleballers were not paying their fair share as compared to golf and golf daily fees. As you have heard, the Pickleball Club is committed to $500,000 towards the project, $500,000. This is not a small number. This is not a daily greens fee. There were comments regarding noise, which you've heard from experts this evening. But I still am troubled by the comments when you go out into that area and you hear the noise from Luke Air Force Base. I personally have a difficult time comparing the two. However, with 1,300 members, we don't have enough courts for our existing in-house events, such as our ladders and our round robins. The additional 16 courts in the far northwest corner of this land will provide us with the needed courts. I am here. I am asking for your yes vote on our new courts. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Carol Schumacher?
My name is Carol Schumacher, and I live at 3260, I can't even remember, 3267 North 164th Avenue. But I am the closest single-family home to this proposed change. So I know that you did, just before I forget, I'm going to hand these in and put these in the record. These were the ones that I had presented at the Planning and Zoning meeting for those that are opposed to this project. And I think you all received an email from me that outlined the reasons for my objections and my rationale, and I hope you took time to read that. What I want to say tonight is that I love Pebble Creek. I love Robeson. This isn't a hate thing. I know that most of the people behind me would like to throw a dart at me, but I'm here to state what I believe is the right thing for our community. The biggest thing that I have about all this is that the residents of Pebble Creek as a whole, let's just say there's about 10,000, that might be a little bit long, 10,000 residents in Pebble Creek have never been asked specifically or given an opportunity to talk about if this is a needed amenity or not. Yes, there's 1,300 pickleball players. To correct the gentleman that just spoke, there was only 600 in the men's golf league. There's 4 golf leagues. There's thousands and thousands of golfers in Pebble Creek. So don't confuse the facts. So I think regardless of where we go with this, I would love to see that area as a recreational amenity for Pebble Creek. Don't get me wrong. I think the whole issue of having pickleball courts in 2 separate locations on the same side of a residential community creates some real difficult scenarios for pickleball players. It's unlike golf. You have different courses and you go to that, but I think it just creates a little bit more difficulty. If they were going to be putting another one over on the Eagles Nest side, that might be a different scenario. So at the end of the day, I just... one more thing, the minimum separation on your document where it shows the minimum separation of the active recreation area to the closest residential unit. I've heard Ed say it every time he's presented that it's proposed to be 590 feet from that pickleball court to this residence. However, in the document that you have in front of you for approval, that does allow for 130 feet. So I know, I've been in planning and zoning chairs. I've been there. I was in commercial real estate. I get this. But please don't pass something that will allow them the latitude to modify that, okay? So currently it says 130 feet, even though his proposed plan, that obviously is just, it's not, we know you have to go through site development, et cetera. But I believe that needs to be modified somewhere to protect the residents a little bit more. So since I'm probably the only one here speaking tonight in opposition, if you have any questions for me from my email, I'd be pleased to answer them. And thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you.
So Cynthia Schwartz did not indicate whether they wanted to speak or not, but is in support of. It didn't, yeah, actually, yeah, support. Robin Slocum does not wish to speak, but did not indicate support or oppose. And Lynn Banks does not wish to speak, but did not indicate whether they support or oppose. And the following are all in support: Renee Chester, Steve Urban, Gary Halperin, Linda Kruger, Teresa Myers, Beth Kelly, Elaine Coulter, Catherine Tarbett Lawson, Joyce Pill, Joe Knight, Vic Knight, John Pym or Pink, Pete Ishii. Okay, Pete.
Good evening. My name is Pete Ishii. I'm a Alaska transplant. I moved into Pebble Creek about 19 months ago. And the main reason I moved to Pebble Creek was for the pickleball. One of the people prior to me said that the pickleball courts are bursting at the seams. To give you an example what that means, the other day I went down there to play pickleball. There were 4 people on the court. There were 8 of us waiting to get on that one court. Pickleball game takes 20 minutes on the average. So that's 40 minutes between games. You go back out there for 20 minutes, and then you sit down again for 40 minutes. It's just kind of an indication. I brought this up at the last meeting. We have existing pickleball courts now, and there's a sound wall between it. And when I ride my bicycle down to the courts in the morning, when I'm outside the wall, which is, the road is there, maybe 40 feet, 60 feet, you can barely hear the pickleball making a noise from the outside of the wall. This new one that's proposed is 580 feet away. So I don't even know where that's an issue with the noise. I don't believe there will be any noise. Plus, it will probably help with the noise from the 303 with the sound wall being there. Thank you for your time. I'm in favor at 100% and hope you can pass that proposal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the following do not wish to speak but are in support of: Daryl Livingston, Jeff Andrich, Felicia Justice, Gordon Cooper, Bruce Banks, Ellie Love, Janice Rogus, Delana Cooper, Joe Slocum, James Laham, Patricia Chernow, Herbert Hodes, Jonathan Coulter, Gretchen Simons, Donald Sims, Pat Sherlock, Tony Wells, Alex Potapoff, Joanne Birch, Davin Birch, Dean Samuelson, Bert Geiger, Vicky Samuelson, Marka Locker, Teresa Carter, John Angus, Pamela Harper, Constance Angus, Judith Govin, Jeff Govin, Peggy Geiger, Lynn Mans, June S. Lee, Sandra Hartstone, Patty Holder, Rich Holder, Michael Schwartz, Don Paxton, Brett Rogers, Shirley Seymour, Dennis Seymour, Debbie McKeever, Lynn Vu, Sherry Kook, Margaret Ed, David Carlson, Artie Nelson, Karen Weldon, Bob Weldon, Michelle Conroy, Charles Conroy. We also received 52 emails in support and 1 opposed, and those have all been supplied to council in hard copy form.
Thank you. We're done with the speakers, is that what we're saying? No more speakers, all right. Somebody, I hear somebody. Huh? Yeah. Okay, is there anybody in the audience would like to speak? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. Will the city clerk please read Resolution 2021-2141 by title only, please?
Adopt resolution number 2021-2141 declaring as public records of certain documents filed with the city clerk titled Official Supplementary Zoning Map number 20-07A, Legal Description, Pebble Creek Phase 2, NW Quad Pickleball Area, December 28th, 2020, and Pebble Creek Phase 2, Northwest Pickleball and Recreation Planned Area Development Regulations State dated March 2021.
Can I hear a motion second to approve Resolution 2021-2141? Do I hear that motion?
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion by Councilman Loretano and a second from Councilman Hampton. Open for council discussion? No discussion?
Oh,
Let's
wait,
have oh, I'm sorry. I didn't. Bill,
I'm trying not to go like this.
Vice Mayor?
I'm not sure where to go. I think I'm going to go to Mr. Bull first. At the very end of your presentation, Mr. Bull, so can we bring that back up, please? There was I'm talking slowly. There was a reference made to I think it was toward the very end as you were making your way off the stage. Something about the disclosure in 43B,
Yes.
43A. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because I understand there's a difference between 43A and 43B. Is that correct?
I'd say technically, yes, there's a difference. And at the Planning Commission, we had 43A and B disclosures on the same side. I was asked a question that I thought was addressed toward 43B, which is immediately, is the closest area where the villas are to the pickleball courts. On the right-hand side is the highlighted language that says it may be used for, this vacant land may be used for various things, including pickleball, and it goes ahead and talks about noise from various things, including potentially pickleball. if we go forward to 43A, again, 43A is south of 43B.
Are those the single-family homes?
Yes. And this disclosure talks about land to the north and west being vacant, expected to be included within the Pebble Creek community, which is true. 43B is to the north, 45 is to the west. It talks about community sports facilities, including, for example, pickleball, and talks about noise and spectators and this and that and the other. So there is a difference between the 43B disclosure saying this future vacant land may be developed with various recreational uses such as a dog park or pickleball, and associated noise, whereas 43A talks about pickleball facilities and so on in the area and the noise associated with it. Two different developments, two different disclosures, but fundamentally talking about pickleball and other things and the noise that's associated with it, whether it's the actual play or spectators. I suppose we could also talk about golfers applauding each other when they make a good putt, but that's not what we're here to talk about tonight.
Okay, I appreciate the clarification because I think you were trying to get to that. And it was something that was of interest to me because of the various emails that we received. There was some that made reference to the disclosure. So I wanted to get some clarity on that. Thank you. That's my questions for you. I've got a couple of other things. The other, Christian, the stipulations that are on this zoning request, can you kind of run through them? I realize, and it was one of the very first speakers talked about posting signs and sound walls and the lighting to be directional and the start time, but I realize that I've got family members who live in Pebble Creek, and I'm very much aware of what the speed limit is. But it's only posted on the main thoroughfares, if you will. It's only posted on Saraville Clubhouse. It's not really on the residential streets or the quote-unquote side streets.
And I will be honest, I've never driven on Fairmount to see if there's speed limit signs, so I will take your word for that.
Yeah, so I don't want to impose an additional, I'm going to say, burden on the HOA because those streets and those signs are owned by the HOA. And honestly, I'm not sure if the speed limit signs are going to make that big of a difference. I'm honestly more concerned about the overflow parking that may go into that area, but the HOA has the ability to post those signs and regulate the parking there at any time. Is that correct?
Once the facility is turned over to the HOA, yes.
Well, but if they wanted to go around and put 25-mile-an-hour speed limits every 2 feet, theoretically they could, right? So that's up to the HOA.
That's correct.
Okay. So really what we have the ability to talk about tonight is really the start time and the lighting, because we're stipulating lighting. Is that not correct as well?
So just to be clear, there's a PAD document that includes development standards, and then there are the stipulations that are attached to the staff report via ordinance. So the zoning document talks about light height and start time. However, if council opted to, they could add stipulations to the zoning case.
Or we could amend what's currently there.
That is correct.
And that's kind of where I'm driving. I'm concerned about getting involved in that because ultimately once we make a zoning determination, this whole project is on the HOA shoulders. It's between them and the owners of the property, Robeson Communities. The city is out of it. So I'm hesitant to jump into that because once we jump into the middle of HOA activities, that is a very deep and dark, murky water.
What council has control over, as you said, is the zoning. So once the zoning's set, that is when that's the city's role.
Right, okay. So throughout all of this, 600 comments plus on either side. There have been a couple of things that came out. One was we received a letter from 2 HOA board members that signed it on Robeson letterhead as 2 individual members. That is kind of concerning because they weren't representing the HOA board. And if they were, they weren't very clear about their representation one way or the other. And I get we're trying to influence the decision makers on this issue, but I found that somewhat disturbing. The other thing that we received today in one of the emails is that there were already signs posted in the Eagles Nest Clubhouse announcing the new pickleball courts. And that, to the pickleballers, that should never happen, because we could say no tonight and then what? And I think that just makes our job much harder as we get ready to make a decision one way or the other. The disclosures for me were the key factor in this. If I bought a villa and I didn't know that this was a potential, I would be pretty upset. And my job as a council member regarding zoning is to protect those residents. Much like the storage facility, I never would have voted in support of that had I known that the residents were not in agreement with that particular development. In a similar case with this, if I want to protect those homeowners from something that they didn't know was coming, that would be my job. But in this case, I have to say they knew it was coming. Whether or not whether it was written in 2014 or 2013 or 2008, whenever you bought it, you signed for it and you knew it was coming. The folks in 43A, on the other hand, probably have an argument, but their argument is with the HOA and with Robeson, not with the city. And that leads me to my last point, which is this whole issue is really an HOA issue. We did not get involved when the golf course wanted to expand a number of years ago, and it was very controversial within the Pebble Creek community about the additional holes in the golf course and whether it was 9 or 18 or 36 or 27 or whatever it was. We didn't get involved in that because that was strictly an HOA issue. But we are involved in this tonight to move this forward. We obviously received a number of emails that are concerned about the maintenance, the future costs, et cetera. Our job tonight is strictly to talk about the land use. The operation and maintenance is the responsibility of the HOA. In fact, the HOA is 100% in control of the future destiny of this project. Just because we say yes tonight doesn't mean that it's going to get built tomorrow. The HOA still has to go through its process. And I think the biggest opportunity for those who have concern about this project need to take that through the HOA. And it's probably as just a big a mountain to climb as we move forward, with this tonight. There's no practical reason to object to this zoning tonight. It's plain and simple. The HOA is there to protect the homeowners, and we're going to give them the opportunity to do the right thing and to make the project go forward. So I would be voting in support of this.
Councilman Loretano?
First of all, I want to take a minute to thank everyone who came, everyone who wrote, everyone who sent emails, everyone who attended the planning and zoning. I reviewed all the material. I watched the planning and zoning feed to see what the questions were, and I saw many of you speak there and here very eloquently, and I understand your passion, and I understand those of you that have concerns. Vice Mayor Stipp was very eloquent in what he said about many of the issues. I understand there are concerns. Whenever there is change in your community, there are concerns. My first concern was, I'm not a Pebble Creek resident. putting this council, and I don't know how this was drafted back in the 90s or the early 2000s. I don't think this is necessarily the appropriateness for the council, especially some of those very specific issues about time. Because honestly, when I think a lot of these issues have been dealt with regard to issues that the HOA can change and modify if necessary. The sound, we're talking about 2 football fields away. So I think the sound with the noise attenuation is good. Although I haven't and don't go to the pickleball facilities in Pebble Creek because I don't live there, I have seen the pickleballers in the park up in Estrella. They crossed the tennis courts, so you can walk by there. It's not an extensive amount of noise. I've seen the ones and watched the pickleball at the community park. For those pickleballers, you'll be happy to know our new rec center has also additional pickleball facilities. So we understand that this is a growing sport. I think it's very good to see active adults, especially in the last year, being outside, being safe. Physical activity is a very positive thing. The noise wall, the restrooms, the Ramada, I think that really is a good park-like atmosphere. Personally, I think it is an improvement above the dirt lot with the monsoons, and it's the Jets and the UPS facility. We've heard about that, and I think it is a good buffer there, and I think they'll be a good neighbor. I am glad that the HOA will be dealing with the specific hours and everything, because personally, my view is when I look at hours to cut back, when it's 117 in June, most people do their recreation, at least what I see in my neighborhood, people are out walking at 9, 10 o'clock at night because it's still 114 at 8 o'clock. And I grew up here and I'm used to it. So I get that. And I don't want to be saying, oh, well, we need to cut it. I think that's the conversation for the HOA to have with the residents if there's certain areas. The lighting, I think we've stipulated and it's been worked out. I know some parks have lighting you only turn on when you're using it. So then it's dark when you're not using it. That's always a good feature that maybe the HOA can look into, because then if someone is not using the pickleball court, there's no light. If someone's using it, you turn on the lights. I think our park has that. Yeah, some of them I know do have that, and that's a really good feature. So I think it's very positive. I understand the concerns, but as Vice Mayor said about the stipulations, when I read those stipulations, in B, it's quite clear that it could be anything there, and pickleball was listed. But even in A, which is even further away, it does lead you to believe that there can be more amenities, and pickleball and sports courts are specifically like laid out. So I understand some people are concerned, and I'm hoping the HOA will continue to listen and work with the residents if there is concerns, to address those concerns if there's traffic or along those lines. You know, maybe if you have a tournament, they help with shuttles. I don't know. You guys, I think that's a thing that the community needs to work out. But I think it's a great amenity. I think it's very good, and I appreciate everyone who's came to speak. So thank you.
Councilman Ham?
Yeah, thank you. So also, once again, yeah, thank you to everybody that came out. I tried to read and respond to most of the emails that I received. There was a lot of emails that we received, so thank you for everybody's input. Yeah, at the end of the day, it is a zoning issue, and then the HOA has to deal with all of the stipulations, all the specifics on it. So I think it's great that Robeson is creating another recreational area for Pebble Creek, and according to the not the stipulations, but the disclosures, it looks like it could be a lot of different uses. So it just happens to be that they're going to go with pickleball. So which I think it'll be a great amenity because there's so many people that are using it, and because like Robeson has a lot more leeway into what they want to put there. So yeah, so I'm in favor of it. So I appreciate everybody that came out and responded and got involved in the public process. But I think it's a great amenity for the community. So.
Councilman Kano?
Well, I think this is a great example of interactive public process. And again, thank you to everybody who came out. This is a unique and rather uncomfortable situation where a private developer wants to create a private recreation facility, and that is in an area that is governed by an HOA, which is technically your first line of government at Pebble Creek. And in this case, there is no public access. So the general Goodyear residents don't get to use this facilities. And here we are trying to make some decisions. So ultimately, what the HOA and Robeson has decided is best for their community after a very long, extensive process is to create pickleball courts. And I support their decisions to make their own decisions.
Councilman Pizzolo?
You know, there's not much more to add once you're the last one up and, batting
Well,
up.
I'll be
but-
the last one up.
Oh,
What are you
you'll be the
talking
last
about?
one, but as you get down through all of this, but again, I appreciate everybody coming in and the participation. We did get a lot. I read through all the emails, read through all the information. My hope is, as this thing goes through, is that the HOA will address any issues that come up, maybe with traffic or overflow in the neighborhoods, or the start time, if they find out that 6 may be a little early, I don't know, but in the summer times, 6 may not be early enough when that heat starts arising. So again, I leave that up to the HOA and feedback from the people that are using it to address those issues.
The mayor being really the last, can he speak? I lived over 20 years in Pebble Creek, and the changes that were made during the time I was there were similar. They took the bocce courts away and they put something else in there, pickleball thing, so they took some tennis courts away because another sport came in. I have to tell you that probably is the most well-run HOA, in my view. I think the ownership, Robeson, has gone beyond the call of duty. When we wanted something, we were going to build a theater. It was a great design, but we didn't think it put enough in it, so he took out the center seats the center walk and put seats in there. We needed a tennis hut, so he built a tennis hut. We had people complain about each one of those things during that process. So this isn't unusual. I think the HOAs do the best job they can. They're elected. They're part of the community. And it's just like we get a number of these with homes, right? The land behind them was empty when they moved in, and so it's rezoned, and now they're unhappy. So you can never solve this problem. But I will tell you from my experience, the pickleball organization is well organized. And when they say they put their money in it, they do. So they're great supporters. And so I think they've earned this. And I went over myself really early on, and I walked all the land around the area. And I felt it was a great opportunity to be right up against Indian School and to be right up at 303. I mean, we talk about noise. You can hear the 303. You can hear Indian School, and you can hear the Jets. So that side of the community has that type of environment. So I'm 100% for this. And so I'm looking forward to this. Get this off the item. Let's vote for it and see what happens, okay? Are we done? You're looking at me, this clerk. Do you have something? Okay, any other comment? Then roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Stipp?
Aye.
Councilmember Kano?
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano?
Aye.
Councilmember Hampton?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Will the city clerk please read ordinance number 2021-1498 by title only?
Adopt ordinance number 2021-1498, conditionally rezoning approximately 5.97 acres of property located northwest of 165th Avenue and Fairmont Avenue, known as Pebble Creek Phase 2 Northwest Pickleball and Recreation, amending the zoning map of the city of Goodyear, providing for non-abridgment, providing for corrections, providing for severability, providing for an effective date, and providing for penalties.
Thank you. Can I have a motion, a second, to approve ordinance number 2021-1498? Do I hear that motion?
So moved.
Second. I heard, we have to speak up a little bit. I heard a motion from Councilman Kano and a second by Councilman Hampton. Roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Stipp?
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano?
Aye.
Councilmember Hampton.
Aye.
Councilmember Kano.
Aye.
Mayor Lord.
Aye.
The motion carries.
All right, what we're going to do is, before the next item, we'd like to take a break. All right, so I know everybody. So how about 10 minutes, okay? thank,
Oh, there it is.
mine wasn't on, I guess.
It wasn't.
All right, well, let me repeat that. We're on number 14 in public hearing to consider proposed licensing fees and penalty to licensed providers of the Goodyear Shared Mobility Device Program. Open the public hearing.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Christine McMurdy, Project Management Coordinator in the Engineering Department. I'm pleased to be here tonight to take the city one step closer to a new mobility opportunity in Goodyear. Our planning staff did a pretty thorough job of creating the Shared Mobility Device Program. They worked hand in hand with our legal team to get us to this next step, turning the program over to engineering where transportation is managed. And also thanks to finance who handled or coordinated a lot of the fees. Much of your feedback in the work sessions that we had in September and December in 2019 prior to the pandemic helped staff create the program rules and operations. Safety for the residents of Goodyear and protection for the city are the hallmarks of this program. So in December 2019, you approved the ordinance that amended our city code to allow staff to create a shared mobility device program. It established some of the basics of the program, including a mobility company must apply for a license. The city can regulate parking of devices and impound them if necessary. And the ordinance allows us to create the program that establishes fees and penalties. And that's the action that we seek your approval on this evening. There are 10 articles in the shared mobility program. Articles 6 and 7, which are highlighted here, were posted on the city website on February 17th of this year, along with a comparison of fees in other Valley cities for public comment. We established program fees to account for staff time. The relocation penalty is per device per day. If the company fails to relocate the device within the time required by the city's terms and license, which is within 24 hours, excluding holidays and weekends, and 48 hours at all other times. The violation penalty is per day and corresponds to any breach of the license terms or data sharing agreement. The holdover penalty is if the company fails to remove the entire fleet within 5 days from the date stated by the city. And the late penalty will be applied if any required penalty that we issue to the company is not paid within the time stipulated by the city. Staff heard very clearly your concerns about the city's exposure to potential liabilities related to this program. The performance bond allows the city to cover costs associated with auditing, removing, and storing improperly parked devices. The amount can be adjusted if the fleet size exceeds 25 devices. There are 5 sections in the program that provide quite extensive indemnification of the city by the vendor from third-party lawsuits. If a shared mobility device user chose to sue the city, the company indemnifies the city. The company's liability insurance would be primary and the city's would be secondary. Prior to issuance of a license, the company must provide certificates of insurance and related endorsements as evidence that their policies provide the required coverage, conditions, and limits required by the city. As many of you may know, most of the problems with these programs was due to a lack of regulation. Fortunately, these concerns brought about necessary changes to most of the shared mobility programs. The National Association of City Transportation Officials actually created policy guidelines in 2018 for the regulation and management of shared active transportation. Goodyear's guidelines are in alignment with this standard and are similar, if not the same, as other local municipalities. The city has received an application from Bird Rides, and I would like to share with you just some of their requirements that speak to safety. Bird Rides requires that scooter use is limited to those over 18 years of age, and the user must have relevant government identification. Their in-app scan captures government identification details. Bird reviews government ID submissions to prevent illegal use or fraud involving multiple accounts that may be tied to the same driver's license. Scooters are remotely deactivated by 10 p.m. every night, and they're energized for the next day at 5 a.m. No park zones are displayed on their in-app map. If a rider attempts to enter a no park zone, the scooter automatically reduces speed and prevents the rider from ending their ride until they have exited the restricted parking area. Advanced systems alert the company when any scooter is left in or near a restricted parking area, and they dispatch a field member to rebalance the scooter. Throughout the day, field members rebalance improperly parked scooters. Scooters are equipped with a speed governor to ensure the motor is incapable of propelling the scooter at a vehicle speed faster than 15 miles per hour. Bird can adjust the speed to suit Goodyear regulations. All Bird e-scooters are equipped with a brain that enables onboard GPS position tracking, real-time data collection, and use with geofencing. The technology ensures accuracy within 3 to 5 feet, which is a 500% improvement on the 16-foot industry standard. So staff does need a little more time to complete the program setup. I've already advised Bird Rides that we are targeting a June 1st start date. Enforcement begins with education. I'll be working with the city traffic engineer and consulting with the police department to identify the no travel and reduced speed zones. We need to build space on the website and work closely with communications to get the word out about the program. And when we're done and have all the information we need, we'll share that project information with you. This is my last slide, so I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Would anybody in the audience like to speak? I'm smiling. I'm going to close the public hearing. Will the city clerk please read resolution number 2021-2149 by title only?
Adopt resolution number 2021-2149, approving the Goodyear Shared Mobility Device Program Articles 6 and 7 financial obligations, penalties, fees, and other financial assurances.
Thank you. Can I have a motion, a second, to approve resolution 2021-2149? Do I hear that motion?
So moved. Second.
I heard a motion from Vice Mayor Stiff and a second from Council Bazillo. Open for council discussion. Councilman Loretano.
I just have a question. Thank you very much for all the hard work in getting through this. Are these, I guess, still as popular as they were a year ago? Because I've noticed that places where they were parked like in bulk in like downtown Phoenix or Glendale or Scottsdale, I don't see them anymore. And I don't know if it's just the pandemic or if they've kind of run their course in some ways.
I think kind of what I've seen happen, first of all, I'm on the MAG Active Transportation Committee, and most of my colleagues from other cities are responsible for managing this program. So I've had the opportunity to listen to a lot of their points, concerns, all the issues associated with the first round of these scooters where they were dropped in places and left for cities to deal with. There was I think that was where all the fascination started. Then the pandemic hit and all these companies had to pull their scooters back. Now they're starting to come back and they've realized that they can't do the same business model that they had originally created. And so, and I had this conversation with Bird too, that they now realize that they have to change the model so that it can cooperate with cities. And a lot of what I've seen in their program materials is just an enormous amount of respect for the fact that, there's certain places that these scooters should not be. And, but there are some places where they work really well. The fact that they are now restricted to people over the age of 18 is a big plus. There's so many things about this, the way they use their company name, Bird, to communicate to users how to use the vehicle. They call, when you're riding on a scooter, you're flying. 4 scooters, which is what we're targeting for what they call a Nest.
is a really good place to start. I mean, it's going to give us an opportunity to see whether people really are going to use them. And I have to say that's the most exciting part of this to me. As the transit coordinator, I want to see where people are going. You know, are they picking them up? Like, and the one thing that I really popped in my head immediately, because I've been working on their transit study, is we've got ball players that come here year round at the ballpark. Most of them come without a car. That's something we heard from one of the managers on the teams who attended a stakeholder meeting about the transit study. Is they're looking for, these guys don't want to go far, but they may want to just go to Aldi or go, you know, to a restaurant. And as we know, the ballpark is situated perfectly for them to be able to get to relatively close destinations. And that's why the data opportunity from this is so ripe, because we'll be able to figure out where people are going. Are they going a mile? Are they going 3 miles? Are they only going a couple of blocks? Where are they dropping the scooter? And hopefully they're parking them because they're responsible people. But, you know, we do request that they use bike racks to store them. And we're going to learn more about that as we talk to Bird. This is the very beginning right now. I have to give a shout out to Jay in the legal department, because he was really the mastermind behind most of the guidelines in this, in the rules. And I think he set this first engagement up for us to do whatever we need to do so that it works for Goodyear. So that's really the goal. So we'll see. I don't really know. I don't know whether it's going to be popular or not. Even the city manager said something. Where are they going to go? I don't know, and I want to know. I really want to know. So we're gonna cruise the city, take a look at some potential places to put them. They will not be going down the hill fast. Not. I mean, if we can, we may make that entire route restricted.
We don't think they will.
Yes. So we're going to see. We're going to find out. And we will be able to share that information with you because we're going to have so much data.
No, I appreciate it. I'd like to see that, because that's what I said. I just don't know if it was just something that dried up, or it's just the pandemic dried it
The
up.
pandemic, and they do spend a lot of the material that they submit to the city talking about their way above standard, way above CDC guidelines cleaning. I'm trying to remember the exact term, but I think they do a bird wash. It's something like that. Bird bath, that was it. Oh my goodness, Councilmember Loretano, thank you.
Why don't we close the public? Why don't we close the public hearing and we can have more of this discussion? Are we at that point?
You already have it closed, and
Right,
you've
so
already
we're
got a
just
motion
open.
on the
Okay,
thing, and
all right.
everybody's discussing.
Go ahead. I guess I'm at roll call, aren't I?
Well, I have a question.
Yes,
Sorry.
Councilman Campbell.
Okay, so are we just doing an ordinance to authorize them to work in our city?
We are authorizing the fees and penalties. That's the action tonight. The ordinance was passed earlier this year.
We already passed that we were going to have scooters?
That we were allowing scooters in the city code.
And where are we going to park these scooters?
They
Because we
will
have
have-
no place really to park them.
We will identify locations that we approve of, and if the participants that use the scooters don't put them back where we say they should go, then these fleet managers will be, by the way, I should mention the fleet managers are actually living in Goodyear. They're familiar with the city, they know where these locations are, and if we want them to relocate the scooters, maybe very different from what we've told them, they will go out and do it. We can pretty much make all the rules on
Okay,
this.
so quickly, if we don't, if they come to the city and we don't want them, how do we get rid of them?
We tell them they can't be here. We don't allow their application. We deny their application.
Okay. And we have bike lanes that they can ride in all over the city, because they cannot go down the middle of a street.
They are allowed to ride on a sidewalk as long as they don't obstruct pedestrians. They can ride in a bike lane if one is available, but only if the speed limit is 35 miles per hour or less.
Where are they going to ride them for the areas we don't have sidewalks?
So we're looking at potentially in the parks, we're looking at maybe the Canyon Trails has a trail system that runs through their community. Any of the residential communities that don't want them there, we're going to honor that and come up with restricted ride zones for those locations. We have we've got a lot to do to figure out where they're going to be allowed to ride.
Thank you.
Brandon?
I think it's good. I just had a question. Are we pretty equal to other cities now? We learned a lot from the other cities, the first wave and everything like that. Are we on par with them? Or are we more or less? Is it fairly
We're
uniform
about
with
the
other
same.
cities?
I guess the only difference right now is we're just entering this program, whereas the cities that Christian studied to get us to this point
Yeah, like
are
Phoenix,
already
Tennessee.
engaged. But a lot of those cities created pilot programs, and they're extending the pilots.
Right.
So that's a sign that, we should take this very slowly, and we should figure out what works for us. So they are still engaged. They're engaged in Phoenix, Gilbert, Scottsdale, Tempe. There may be one or two others that I don't know about, but those are the cities where they are continuing to ride. Peoria, they are not allowed in Peoria. There's an insurance issue there. That's the only city that is not pursuing, continuing the program.
Yeah.
It had something to do with the insurance.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the city. I see Tempe definitely as a higher user than some of the other cities, or downtown Phoenix maybe as a higher user.
Correct.
But maybe in the future, I don't want to not have it or the possibility of having it. I mean,
I'll tell you that when staff in engineering found out that I was bringing this forward, they were all very excited about using them. And I mean, I could see that. I could see them going from GMC to City Hall, not the
Yeah.
new City Hall, but the current City Hall.
yeah, around the entertainment
There's- I
area.
think
There's
there's a
certain
lot of-
areas that they work, but
Right. There's a
I'm not
lot
going
of
to commute
curiosity.
from McDowell to Cantamia on it. So it's not a it's not it's for smaller areas. So.
Correct.
Any other questions? No questions, let's vote on it. I'm anxious to see what the final determination we make after they get out on the streets. But I read everything that you wrote, and good job. Was that Rory's department that put that
That
together?
Jay Karlovich is one of our assistant attorneys. He did an outstanding job.
The
He really
entire
did.
thing today, and I absolutely was impressed by
Yeah.
it. So, thank you, that certainly helped. Okay, we're going to vote on it. Roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Stipp?
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
No.
Councilmember Hampton?
Aye.
Councilmember Kano?
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
The motion carries.
All right, we're on number 15, the final public hearing item for PY 2021 to 2025 CDBG can't even speak the rest of it. Consolidated Plan and PY 2021 Annual Action Plan. Open the public hearing.
Yeah,
Welcome, ladies.
this will be real familiar.
Okay, good evening, or perhaps I should say, good morning, Mayor and Council members. I'm Jenna Goad, Assistant to the City Manager, and I am joined here tonight by Christina Panatescu, our Grants and Neighborhood Services Supervisor, as well as our consultant on this matter, Martina Keel. Tonight, we're conducting a public hearing on our draft CDBG planning documents as required by HUD. This hearing is an opportunity for the public to provide comments on the draft plans, but we are not requesting any council action this evening. As you may recall, council discussed these draft documents and gave guidance on your priorities in a work session on March 22nd. Tonight's presentation is an abbreviated version of the information discussed at that work session, but we felt it was appropriate to briefly review that information for the benefit of the public who may be watching or want to provide comments. This evening, we'll provide a brief overview of the draft 5-year consolidated plan and the annual action plan, and then briefly discuss the next steps. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Keel.
All right, so the 5-year consolidated plan is really the framework for the long-term use of community development block grant funds. And the plan includes 7 required elements, and those elements are really kind of heavy on data. And then I'll speak in a few minutes about some of the outreach that we did in order to arrive at priorities. Those 7 required elements are affordable housing, homelessness and special populations, non-housing community development, which can include things like public services, public facilities, and infrastructure. Barriers to affordable housing development are things that make it difficult for developers to develop affordable housing in the community. Lead-based paint, which there is not a lot of in Goodyear because the housing stock is new. And an anti-poverty strategy. We have a goal of reducing poverty, the incidence of poverty by 10% over a 5-year period. And institutional structure and coordination, which is really about the systems that we use and how we go about complying with the many regulations that are part of the Community Development Block Grant Program. And I want to add that when we're talking about CDBG funds, we're talking about spending resources for the benefit of low and moderate income individuals and neighborhoods. And a low and moderate income family of 4 in Goodyear would have an income of $62,250 or less. And there are about 5,800 such households in Goodyear, many of whom are elderly, people who do have special needs and are living on fixed incomes. So as part of the process of developing the consolidated plan, and I know I talked with many of you, actually all of you, I think at one point early in the kind of outreach process, we also did a community survey that was up for about 45 days or so. Got 316 survey responses, which is actually quite high. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but it is. We conducted 23 interviews with stakeholders that included elected officials, representatives of school districts, health centers, broadband, neighborhoods, and social service agencies. We did a meeting with the Faith and Community Roundtable. 36 individuals attended that and gave us their input on priorities. We did a lead alumni meeting. We had 23 alumni attend that meeting and give us input. And then in early February, we did a first public hearing. There are 2 required for a 5-year consolidated plan. We did a first public hearing, and we had 11 members of the public join us. All of those meetings were done virtually. So that taking all of that data in those areas that HUD requires and all of the input that we received, that's how we end up putting together the plan. And it's that input kind of collated with or overlaid on top of the data that says, how do we prioritize this limited amount of resources that we get every year so that we can have the biggest impact for our more vulnerable residents. So what we ended up with was 3 high priority activities over the next 5 years and 2 low priority activities. So low priority activities doesn't mean that it's an unimportant thing that in the community. What it really means is that those are things that we're going to address should the right opportunity come along, and they're less likely to have those opportunities than our high priority activities. HUD also requires that we set a goal along with the priorities when we establish the priorities. Keep in mind, those are just goals. There is no penalty for meeting them. So you will see numbers associated with high priority and low priority activities in the plan. So our high priority activities are community facilities and improvements, and the goal there is to benefit 2,000 low and moderate income residents over the next 5 years. Public services, which is like human services programs that help people with their essentially their day-to-day lives when they need basic supports, again to benefit 2,000 low and moderate income residents and vulnerable populations. And then of course program administration, because we want to do the program right. Low priority activities that might be funded should opportunities arise are attainable and sustainable housing, We set goals to rehabilitate owner-occupied housing, and that includes conducting emergency repairs. If there's some kind of health and safety threat, being able to do that. The goal there is to help 10 homeowners. To provide attainable housing for 10 households. So that would be something like first-time home buyer assistance, or perhaps providing infrastructure to a site that is going to provide housing that is attainable by, say, the workforce. And then providing direct home buyer assistance to 5 first-time home buyers. And then economic development to assist 2 businesses.
So moving on to the annual action plan, this is a document that we'll need to do each year to tell HUD how we intend to spend that upcoming allocation. And the projects that we identify in that one-year plan need to tie back to those priorities that Martina just reviewed with you. For the program year 2021, we know that HUD will be providing Goodyear an allocation of $422,807. The activities that we're proposing to do with that include community improvements with about $338,246. This specifically would be applied to the North Subdivision's streetlight project, which already has an investment of CDBG funds in it and is already therefore subject to the CDBG regulations. It has, after that initial CDBG investment, a balance of $681.02. It's past my bedtime, sorry. $681,245. So we will be able to reduce that by $338,246, and we'll retain 20% of the allocation for program administration, which is on par with what all of the other entitlement cities in the valley do. Those examples of the administrative expenses include studies and setting up policies and procedures and oversight to make sure that we're following the regulations set forth by HUD.
Okay, and I just would real quickly like to mention the next steps. So in addition to the opportunity to provide comments tonight, the public can also submit written comments through April 30th. The directions for how to do that are on our website at goodyearaz.gov/CDBG. We'll bring the final plans, including a record of any public comments that we do receive, back to Council for consideration on May 10th. And then pending approval by HUD, we expect the funds to be available after July 1st. Mayor, that completes our presentation.
Thank you. Well, I'm sure there's no speaker cards and there's nobody in the audience that want to speak. So I'm going to close this public hearing. The final planning documents will be brought before council in May. We appreciate your presentation tonight.
Thank you all. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
All right, council, we're going to go to the business and remind council to wait till the motion is second before discussion. The only item of business tonight, this evening, is to consider approving the foreign trade zone policy. Harry Paxton will be presenting. Harry, I know I've been watching you sit there. It's getting late at night. I could just see you want to get in that car and go home.
I am happy to be here, Mayor. Happy to be here. Happy to bring this before you, Mayor, tonight and the council, our proposal for a new foreign trade zone policy. To review just a little with you on your previous actions by the council began back in July of 2009, where the council approved participation in the Greater Maricopa Foreign Trade Zone. Also in 2009, you approved 2 magnet sites we discussed at a work session recently, one at the PV 303 development along the Loop 303 corridor, and also one at the Airport Gateway Industrial Park along 143rd Avenue, south of Van Buren down to Yuma Road. The purpose for creating the program was to attract quality companies to our industrial areas. Also, we wanted to encourage spec buildings and create shovel-ready sites. At the time, much of our available industrial properties lacked the basic infrastructure. In essence, Goodyear was land-rich, had a lot of land sites, but infrastructure poor. In October of 2010, Council amended the policy clarifying when pilot fees were applicable and also approved a third magnet site at the Goodyear Crossings Industrial Park on South Cotton Lane. And then in December of 2014, Council amended the FTZ policy providing administrative approval of user-driven sites with spec building requirements through January 1 of 2018. Also at that time, we required wage and capital investment standards. So the 2014 user-driven spec building FTZ policy provided administrative support through January 1 of 2018 for projects meeting the manufacturing high wage and job requirements, or if they were internet fulfillment projects, they had internet sales requirements to meet. The map in this slide here depicts, it shows a visual of what was adopted in 2014. The red areas on this map were those areas where high wage and internet fulfillment projects could be developed. And the gold area on the map is the area only high wage manufacturing at that time could be administratively approved. The blue area was our existing magnet sites at that time. So for manufacturing requirements at that time, we required 51% of the employees are paid 125% of the state median wage. Also, a minimum of 75 manufacturing jobs would be created. For internet fulfillment, the requirements were a minimum of 25 million in Arizona end-user sales annually. And for both manufacturing and internet fulfillment, at least 25 million in capital investment and a 75% employer contribution to health insurance was required. These policies have worked well for the city. The magnet sites have helped attract speculative infrastructure as well as speculative buildings that helped us to bring some great companies to Goodyear. Our industrial sector today is thriving with about 7.7 million square feet either under construction or planned to be under construction in 2021. So on April 12th, Council provided in a work session direction. At that time, Council provided continuing direction to encourage development, provide incentives to industries consistent with the city's development policies, encourage the location of the city's targeted industries, specifically high-wage jobs, and provide an update to Council every 2 to 3 years and assess if the policy may need to be amended. So the policy that we're proposing tonight is very similar to our 2014 policy. The manufacturing companies would employ at least 100. And regarding the 100 jobs threshold in the policy, we believe this threshold is something that most, in fact, all of the manufacturers, not only in Goodyear, but also in the foreign trade zone in the West Valley, meet that standard. In fact, they far exceed it. If you look at all the manufacturers in the West Valley, the manufacturers average about 251 jobs. In Goodyear, we average about 348 jobs. We believe that's a reasonable threshold that companies can meet. Generally, foreign trade zone companies, manufacturing companies, have a significant requirement on imports in order to meet the federal requirements, meaning that they're a certain level of a company in terms of their size and in terms of their employment. So we believe that threshold is a threshold that most companies that we're going to be dealing with In fact, to date, all the manufacturers we've dealt with that are foreign trade zone capable have met that, or significantly, of course, exceeded it. Also, they would have to pay 51% of their employees at least 125% of the Arizona median wage. Internet fulfillment companies would have a requirement of a minimum of 25 million in Arizona end user sales annually. In each of these categories, the manufacturers or internet fulfillment, the companies would need to invest 25 million in new capital investments. The companies would need to pay at least 65% of their employees' health insurance. All of their companies that don't meet those requirements that desire to be activated as a foreign trade zone site and want the federal benefits would be required to pay a pilot fee. And then a review of the policy provided to council every 2 to 3 years. So that's our proposal for an update to the foreign trade zone policy, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yes, Brandon?
So from I'm trying to understand, so the only difference you made between the last time you came to us and this is you went to 100? I think you made more changes, it feels like. So you just don't think you change from the current policy to this policy is 75 to 100?
Yeah, Mayor Lord and Councilmember Hampton, in terms of, the job requirement for a manufacturer, yes. We've increased that from 75 to 100.
And then it looks like you added the pilot fee and then a review cycle every 3 years.
Pilot fees, if companies don't meet their requirements, then they'd be required to pay a pilot fee. If they want should a company want the federal benefits, but they don't meet our requirements for the tax policy, then they would be required to pay a pilot fee.
Okay. Sorry, did I skip?
I didn't even notice.
Did I jump
You
ahead?
see how late it is? We need to wait to council discussion when we get through all of this. Okay, so let's just change it a little. There are no speaker cards. I'm sure there's nobody in the audience who wants to speak. I was sleeping over here. Don't worry about that. Will the city clerk please read resolution number 2021-2154?
Adopt resolution number 2021-2154 approving foreign trade zone policy of the City of Goodyear dated April 26, 2021, providing authorization and direction to take actions and execute documents necessary to carry out intent of the resolution limiting application of tax policy to future FTZ sites and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Can I have a motion, a second, to approve resolution 2021-2154? Do I hear that motion?
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion by Councilman Pizzillo and a second by Councilman Campbell. Open for council discussion. Now you can do it.
We're good.
So you just give up?
He answered my question. Yeah.
Okay. Bill?
Harry, when we talked at the work session, we had a discussion about the employee count, I think, regarding the robotics facilities, et cetera. In this summary, we talk about manufacturing. What category would that fall into? A robotics facility of $200 million with 55 employees.
Mayor Lord and Vice Mayor Stipp, trying to understand your question completely. I think I understand what you're asking. If we had a significant investment from a manufacturer that has a high capital investment in robotics, and they did not meet the 100 job requirement, one of the requirements that our city attorney reminded me of and our city manager reminded me of was the uniformity requirement that the Federal Foreign Trade Zone Board has. And so we need to treat each of the have those policies and set those policies. If there is a category that is significantly different, say, for example, we have internet fulfillment category, we have a manufacturing category, that may be something we could look at this point. We have some pretty significant companies that have a lot of automation. There could be a scenario to where maybe they have significantly less than 100 and they don't meet our standard and have high capital investment. But part of the thought behind this policy is we also want to have a significant job impact. We felt that, looking at what we've looked at, our experience in working with companies, not only those that we have in our community, but those in the zone as well as many others that we've talked with, we felt that the 100 job requirement was a pretty easy threshold for most of the companies, the vast majority of companies I've talked to, that they can meet that given that they're a foreign trade zone company. Because many of the companies, we have some great manufacturers in our community, probably, I think, counting today, 20, maybe a little over 20. We have 4 foreign trade zone companies that are manufacturers, 9 in total. The other 5 are, in the internet fulfillment or distribution world. So of all those companies, as well as the other companies in the other parts of the zone in the West Valley, they all easily meet that standard. So that was the thought behind the 100 is a significant job impact, but feel pretty comfortable today that companies that we work with can meet that threshold.
Well, and I think we talked about this at the work session. Obviously, the genesis of my question goes back to a work session or a e-session that we had regarding a robotics facility that did not meet the 75 job criteria, but was a significant investment in something that we absolutely wanted to attract to the city. And this policy prohibits that from occurring.
Yeah, Mayor Lord and Vice Mayor Stipp, I think maybe what you might be referring to is one of the agreements that we have with actually Elwood Logistics, and that facility just finished their spec building and they're putting in the road. And so they asked for foreign trade zone. At that time, the city was in the middle of a lot of competition, potentially for data center development. One of the things that we did was we lowered that job requirement, knowing that data centers have a high capital investment and a low job. Now, most data centers, vast majority of them, I think there's only one that I know of in Arizona that is in a foreign trade zone. That's the Apple facility in the East Valley. And the reason why it was able to be approved as a foreign trade zone is because they also operate as a distribution center. They operate as a distribution center where a lot of servers and other products come into that facility and they distribute it out to their other facilities. So they were able to qualify. That's one scenario. We have not created that category in this policy. But, obviously the city's been pretty successful in attracting data center companies.
Yeah, there's no question about that. And I don't want to belabor it and repeat it, other than to say that we were discussing an opportunity that we had not ever before contemplated. And we were kind of thinking, geez, what does the future look like? And here we are today looking at revising the policy and making it more restrictive for that type of, we don't know what the future brings. And I mentioned that during the work session. So I just want to make sure that there wasn't a workaround to that, and it appears that there's not. So thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Stipp?
Nay.
Councilmember Campbell? Aye. Councilmember Hampton?
I'm going to go nay.
Councilmember Kano?
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
The motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor and
Thank you
Council.
very much. Okay, let's get to the end of this. Does manager have anything to report?
Thank you, Mayor. Just one brief item, and that is that tomorrow, April 27th, is the last day for residents to complete the city's Citizen Satisfaction Survey. It's an important tool that we use to collect resident feedback, identify priorities, and inform future decision-making. Residents can take the survey online by visiting www.goodyearaz.gov/community survey. Results will be presented to council in June of this year. Thank you.
Good. All right, the next meeting will be a work session on May 10th, 2021, starting at 5 p.m., followed by a regular meeting. There being no further business to discuss, this meeting is adjourned.